Live.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. It was a week of uncertainty, flip-flops, diplomatic discussions and moving deadlines, all surrounding US tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration implemented new 10% import duties on China and 25% on its two nearest neighbours, to only then reverse course and delay those Canada and Mexico tariffs for a month. All that uncertainty unsettled global markets amid fears of a painful and costly trade war. FSN's Tony Waterman reported on the retaliation moves.
Within minutes of the new U.S. tariffs taking effect, China and Canada retaliated, hitting the U.S. with fresh tariffs of their own on everything from cars to cotton to wine, beer, and Florida orange juice. Mexico, Canada, and China are the U.S.'s top three trade partners, and a trade war threatens to upend more than $2 trillion in trade, much of the cost passed along to consumers. Trump wants the countries to do more to stem the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. All three deny they are responsible for the U.S.'s drug problem.
Leaders of the European Union's member states ramped up support for Ukraine this week with an emergency summit in Brussels. It followed Washington's decision to freeze military aid to Kiev and cut off intelligence sharing. FSN's William Denslow was watching developments from the Belgian capital.
Senior EU officials say the changing policy from the US when it comes to Ukraine is the basis of this emergency summit. The focus is on how Ukraine's European allies can ramp up support in the short term, while also providing longer-term security guarantees, such as a possible peacekeeping force. Leaders will also discuss the European Commission's roughly $850 billion rearm plan to bolster the bloc's defence capabilities. European powers are scrambling to retain Washington's support for Ukraine, but this summit is an opportunity to prepare for a scenario where it's without its transatlantic partner. William Denslow, Brussels.
Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine are set to hold talks in Saudi Arabia next week aimed at creating a ceasefire agreement in the conflict with Russia. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Kiev.
After President Zelensky meets the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday, his team, but crucially not Mr. Zelensky himself, will stay on in the country for meetings with the US delegation. Washington has made no secret of its dissatisfaction with the Ukrainian leader, and the president's chief of staff is likely to head up the Ukrainian delegation. According to Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff, the idea for the talks in Saudi Arabia is to, quote, get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire. President Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine is not only ready to take the necessary steps for peace, but, quote, we are also proposing those steps.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN. The Gaza ceasefire agreement was in limbo this last week. Phase 1 expired last weekend with no clear path forward to move on to the second phase. US President Donald Trump threatened Hamas, telling the group it was their final chance to release the remaining hostages. US Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, plans to travel to the region next week. FSN's Giles Gibson has this update from Tel Aviv.
Speaking to reporters, Steve Witkoff did not reveal exact details about his trip to the Middle East next week, simply telling them that he'll visit 4 countries. The special envoy did confirm that the Trump administration recently held talks with Hamas, reversing a long-standing US policy of not negotiating directly with terror organizations. Though he admitted the priority is Edan Alexander, who's believed to be the last living US citizen in captivity in Gaza, Witkoff insisted the aim is still to secure the release of all remaining hostages. No hostages have been released since the first phase of the ceasefire agreement expired last weekend. Giles Gibson, Tel Aviv.
And with that Gaza ceasefire agreement looking precarious, the United Nations this week urged Israel to restart aid deliveries to the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that aid would be blocked, accusing Hamas of stealing supplies. FSN's Jody Jacobs sent this report from the United Nations headquarters in New York.
The United Nations says the lives of thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip hang in the balance, warning that an already catastrophic situation on the ground risks deteriorating even further unless the flow of aid resumes without delay. Humanitarians say if the blockade continues, at least 80 community kitchens may soon run out of stock. Thousands of aid trucks moved into Gaza under the first phase of the ceasefire deal, which started on January the 19th.
And that was the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Bruce Springsteen completed his new sci-fi concept album Red Dust, which explores the lives of struggling 23rd century carbonite miners on Mars. The 14 tracks on the album address a range of everyday trials and tragedies faced by blue-collar Martian men, simply trying to put food on the table for their embryonically harvested juvenile clones while living under the hypocrisies of a corrupt planetary federation. In business, top financial experts have indicated that any hope of recovery for the struggling U.S. economy rests solely on Spokane, Washington resident Bill Laughlin, who is currently browsing the power tools section at Sears. At 10:10 this morning, Laughlin investigated a scroll saw which sent stocks soaring nearly 300 points. 15 minutes later, with Laughlin straying away to try on sunglasses, Congress called an emergency joint session to offer Sears tax breaks in exchange for sending an experienced salesman over to help. In other news, a local man pushes the 4 millionth button of his life, and an area teenager is smoking like he's been to f***ing war or something.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
We'll figure it out.
This is Free Talk Live. This is Talk Radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 if you want to get on the air and let us know what you're thinking about tonight. And in the studio tonight is Stu.
And Richie Rich.
And we've got... I guess the most immediate thing to mind is the daylight savings thing, which is always annoying.
Yeah.
I wish they'd quit jacking the time around.
Are you a daylight savings guy or are you a standard time guy, though?
I mean, I don't care. Just pick one.
Okay.
Quit jacking it around.
All right.
It's kind of arbitrary anyways.
Well, it's arbitrary. But
I would probably prefer it if the world worked on one time zone.
I'm fine with that, too. I've pitched that as well.
Because I don't care what numbers are on the
But
device.
people get confused. They go, you want your kids going to school at midnight? I go, no. Well, it's not midnight here.
That's not midnight. You just have to quit calling 12 midnight because it's not anymore.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. But do I want them going there to school like 12 a.m.? Maybe. If that's what like time it is when you start it. But it'll still be like when the sun's out. It's not in the middle of the night anymore.
Well, it might be a healthy change because then people would just realize that's some arbitrary number that humans put on a thing that exists in nature.
But it also makes more sense in the internet age, right? International business, the internet age. You know, you're dealing with people across multiple time zones at any given time, no matter what you're doing. You know, from like doing business to playing video games or whatever it is.
Yeah, I wonder how
it'd be easy to not have to do math.
I wonder how much wealth is just squandered into calculating time zones.
I mean, I have an app for it, so probably not much.
Probably not a lot, but worldwide, and billions of people doing it. It might add up.
Or you set your calendar, your meeting on a calendar. You know, you're traveling from like New York to LA or whatever, and then it moves to the time on the calendar because you move time zones, and it's a mess. Like, what time zone was the meeting supposed to be at? I don't know because my calendar app changed it for me. Yeah, that was a real problem for some people who travel a lot.
Yeah,
I missed my meeting because the app moved it on my phone after I had already set it. If you have one time zone, problem solved. Everyone knows what time it is.
Yep, but with the daylight savings thing, they jack it around even worse than just time zones.
Yes, and now we're in daylight savings time, and like as you mentioned, it's arbitrary. But I'm a fan of standard time, only because like it's arbitrary, but they picked the starting point. Right? They went Greenwich, that's 0. And then you just piece up the globe into 24 equal slots, and whatever time zone you're in, like that's it. You don't get to choose after the fact, like, oh no, we want to be like an hour different from where we actually, it's pretty cut and dry when you just go like.
So the daylight savings is
wrong.
The adjusted time,
right,
as opposed to standard time just being
whatever time it is,
in that time zone.
Yeah.
Yep. I liked Arizona for not switching theirs around.
From March through November, right? School starts at 8 instead of 9 or whatever. I don't know what time school starts, right? But it's as if you want that extra time, it's as easy as just like changing the hours of operation. Yeah. Right. Which makes a lot more sense on an individual business perspective.
It really does, because how hard would it be to just, look at we just have an app, open it up, find out what time you got to be to school.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated.
Or, if the business doesn't want to change the time, like then they're just open from 9, right? Or 10 or whatever happens to be.
Right. And if it never changes, then, if there's only one time, it's not that hard.
And I don't think businesses, I think it's more, if it's more for the children, right, then schools might change their hours and businesses may or may not. Right? Oh no, I got to drop my kid off early. Well, then it makes sense, if you have a lot of family people working for you, to change your hours of operations to accommodate them now having to drop their kids off at a different time.
Yeah.
But pets don't care. Right? Oh, you feed them at 5, and all of a sudden, now you're feeding them at 4.
All right. No, I always eat at 6.
They know what time it is.
Yeah.
Farm animals know what time it is.
Yep.
They're not beholden to the arbitrariness of the clock, the human clock.
The only reason humans use time is so we can coordinate things. Otherwise, it's basically unnecessary.
Which again makes more sense if there was one with a global marketplace and international business.
Agreed.
If you want the trains to run on time, right, just have one time. Like this is when it leaves and this is when it gets there, no matter where in the world you happen to be.
Yep, I think this is a big issue. Somebody should definitely take it up as their life cause. But right now, we've got a caller on the phone, on-screen caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, you guys are talking about time. Have you heard of Universal Coordinated Time?
No.
That's Greenwich Mean Time. It's London time.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's a 24-hour clock, and is used around the world for everybody.
Okay.
Is that the time zone that contains London and Big Ben?
Yeah, that's 0.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
zero
okay.
That's what I'm saying. They picked a 0. They picked Greenwich.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So just go. And what I'm saying is that if they picked Greenwich as 0, even with this universal whatever time you just said, right? If London is 0 and Greenwich is 0, then that's it. Then they divide the world into 24 equal slices, and whatever time zone you happen to be in, you just are. Because it's not arbitrary at that point. The starting point is arbitrary. Everything else makes sense. Or, like we've been just talking about here, just have the one time. Whatever time it is in Greenwich, that's it. And you just coordinate off of that.
The military uses it. Government uses it. Airplanes use it. Everybody uses Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah. But again, like here in New Hampshire, we're like GMT -5 or GMT -4 when we spring forward. Right, so you do the math based off of Greenwich Mean Time.
I guess it kind of makes sense, because if you want to know relatively what time it is in Australia, whether it's the middle of the day or whatever, then I guess that might make that more simple.
Who cares? If you're scheduling an appointment, just coordinate it.
What if you're taking a long plane ride and you start in the United States and you end up in London? You have to go by a single clock, and otherwise you have to add and subtract as you go.
Yeah.
Well, when you're booking a plane ride, they give you they give you the local time, right? Like I don't go often, but I'm from Hawaii, so I fly back to Hawaii. So I go back 6 hours, or right now it's like 6 hours. So the plane ride, I'm going to get this wrong, but the plane ride there is like technically shorter than the plane ride back. Right? Because, I travel for 9 hours, but there's a 6-hour time difference, so it seems like I'm there early. Yeah. And when I fly back, I lose a day because I travel for 9 hours, and then it's 6 hours beyond that, even further.
Yeah, I've flown Boston to Salt Lake, and it's that same kind of thing.
Right. But they give you the local time. So, they've done the math, and the only thing that changes in that respect is the flight time, because they go by the local time.
Only the pilots use the GMT.
Right. But again, we're with you. Standardize it, make it the one thing, and just be done with it.
Yeah, I'm going to start asking everybody when they tell me what time the thing happens. Well, what is that in GMT?
Be the change you want to see in the world. Just start giving people GMT and let them figure it out.
Huh.
Hey, what time are we meeting, Stu? 5 GMT. What time is that? 5 GMT.
Yep. 5 in the AM GMT.
Not even in the AM. It's like, because PM would be like 17
I guess that's
GMT.
True. You got to use the 24-hour clock.
There you
as
go.
Well.
Figure it out.
1700 GMT.
If you said 5 GMT, if you said 5 on GMT, you could use that same number no matter where you are in the world and your other person is in the world, because the number is the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've been promoting that for how long have I been on this show? 6 years?
Yeah, I think we ought to make the switch. I'm convinced.
Just one, just make it universal. Again, my defense, it doesn't matter to me, but like my practical defense for it is international business and a global marketplace. I don't need to do math. I don't need to know what time it is, for the call center to open up in India. I just, that's what time it is. And you can adjust your operating hours accordingly. So if students are going to school from like 12 to 6, right, that's just what it is. And if that happens to be daylight hours where you are, fantastic. And if it's not, then change the operating hours to daylight hours. Make it 8 to 4 or 8 to 2 or whatever it is in your daylight area. Here it would be what? Here, like 3, it would be 3 to 9 around there here. Like, oh, what time is that? Well, the sun comes up around 3, so let's open school at 3.
Yeah.
Right? And when the sun starts to come up a little bit later, right, then you move school hours to 4 or 5 to accommodate.
Makes perfect sense to me.
I agree.
Here. Dilly.
Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that's it. I just wanted to chime in on that. You guys have a good evening.
All right. Thanks for the call.
I get to yell about it twice a year as long as I'm here.
Yep.
And I'm not changing my watch. I'm not changing my watch. Everything, all the automatic stuff that changes around me, fine. But my wristwatch is staying on standard time.
Stays on standard time. I did this last year. I made it through the 6 months or however long it is of daylight nonsense. And, I look at it and go like, okay, I just got to add an hour and I'm fine. Yeah. I've thought about wearing a wristwatch again lately. I used to wear one. I liked it a lot. And,
okay.
And I don't check the time a lot to where it's annoying to have to pull my phone out and check. But it is maybe 2 or 3 times a day. So probably worth it.
I've always worn one, and now I use it more to check the date.
Yeah.
But it's also like just a habitual tick. Like I'll look at it out of habit and not even gather any information.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I liked wearing.
Don't play poker with.
I like the nylon Velcro on.
Okay.
Wristband strap, but so tonight we've got several topics that we brought in.
Hopefully some fun stuff.
You want to go first? Because it sounds like all your stuff is fun.
I try. And I haven't been on in like 3 weeks, so I'm overloaded with nonsense. But yeah, I can go first.
All right.
Doesn't matter to me. Here's like, this is clever. Headline: a Salinas teacher, this is California, to return to class after allegedly trying to sell test-enhancing pills to students.
These are going to make your test scores better.
Yes, that was the pitch. Are you struggling with your test? Like, here, I've got drugs in my briefcase for you.
Probably, what, like ibuprofen or?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I read through this. I don't think it mentions exactly what it is. But at the same time, like, college kids takes Adderall, right? Like, the modern youth is inundated with amphetamines and whatever else to like help their test scores and focus better in school. So it's not.
Well, maybe even it's just a sugar pill.
Could be. Like he just could be selling them nonsense.
Yep.
It's not the PE teacher though. So a Salinas High School math teacher was on leave and under investigations after students accused him of trying to sell them pills that would help them do better in their studies. He's trying to help them. They're upset, like, oh, no, he's trying to sell us drugs. It's like, dude, this is your future that we're talking about here. Take the drugs.
At least give it a thought.
At least consider it.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. And especially now there was some articles that I came up recently where the valedictorian of some Chicago school was like functionally illiterate. Like the valedictorian couldn't read or write. Like, this is ridiculous.
That's not too surprising to me.
It shouldn't be in and nowadays, but yeah, it should be very surprising. We're the smartest person in school.
Yeah, the abilities of public schooled children has gone way down since I was in school, and they did a bad job then.
So yeah, so take the pills. I'm getting these messages from my daughter that her teacher is selling drugs in the classroom to enhance homework and test performance. So what if he gives a bonus, like a extra credit to the kids who buy the drugs, right? Like to prove how well the drugs work.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, without that you would have gotten a B, but good thing you took the drugs. Now it's like an A- or an A or something. He could totally fudge the scores to highlight the effectiveness of his wares.
He totally could, or he could just be doing his own little sandboxed experiment.
Could be, yeah.
On placebo effect.
Yeah. I thought maybe she's taking it out of context. This is appalling. There's no way a teacher's doing this, said one parent who KSBW8 is not identifying because her child is in the math class. And that's the source for this, is some news site out of California.
I got a message for you, lady. Yes, this and worse is going on in public school, and you're a monster for putting your child there.
Well, okay. I mean, yes, it is worse, but some people feel like their hands are tied, and not a lot of places are conducive to homeschooling. And so,
too bad.
Well, too bad. But if the alternative is like you get arrested for truancy or failing to file the proper forms with the government because you chose to homeschool,
I get it. It's a hard line, but you got to find a way. You got to find a way out of that.
That's fair. That mother said she started getting text messages from her child last week. One text to her mother said, he, the math teacher, said homework enhancing pills $5, test enhancing pills $25.
Oh, okay.Maybe it's just a side hustle thing then, because I was expecting them to be like, bucket pill or something.
And again, it's Smarties or what, crushed Smarties, and he just bumps your grade up.
Yep, and puts them in gel capsules.
Which you could probably get at your Whole Foods or your local health food store.
Yeah, in case you want to grind your own supplemental herbs or whatever.
It's been done. The teacher allegedly also told his students how many pills they should take, and that we should take 15 a week. Another text read, so what? Do the math. 15 times, what is that? $75 a week to do your homework if you're only taking the homework pills. A lot more expensive if you're on the test taking pills. 15 test taking pills a week.
So now, with a price like that, I'm gonna expect that these pills are so good I won't even actually have to do the homework.
If you're taking 15 a week, he'll probably give you the A.
Okay. I mean, I'd take the pills, I think.
Would you? Just to get the A?
School's a bunch of nonsense. Anything I can do to get out of doing their work.
I mean, my allowance wasn't big enough to afford $75 of pills a week from a teacher.
That's true. I guess I'd have to go find my own side hustle then.
Cut it and resell it to the underclassmen.
Yeah, there you go.
When students started questioning what the pills contain, the student told her mother, "I asked what's in them, and he said, it's a secret." The text said, the Salinas High parent is furious. It's a proprietary blend. It's got your vitamins and amino acids, a little bit of minerals in there.
Yeah, it's the Colonel's secret recipe.
11 herbs and spices.
Yep.
To put that on to teenagers who are still learning, their brains are still developing, and you're normalizing drug use within a classroom in the middle of a fentanyl crisis. It's absurd. The lack of judgment to me is astounding, said the parent. The student told her mother the white pills were in a plastic baggie, and the teacher pulled them out of his briefcase. Salinas police confirmed that they did take a report and are investigating. So at one point in time, I was working at a salad restaurant, and my coworker turned into a friend of mine. Had some pre-workout, because he was a gym rat. And I was just getting into it. And he's like, "Rich, take this." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not taking that, dude." He's like, "No, trust me. You'll feel good." I'm like, "Dude, it's white powder in a plastic Ziploc baggie, and you just want me to trust you?" He's like, "Yeah, trust me, bro. You'll feel so good after this."
Yeah, no thanks.
I ended up taking it. It was just an energy supplement. He broke me down and convinced me that it wasn't actual drugs.
Yeah, okay.
It also didn't work. He's like, "No, your problem, Rich, was that you didn't eat before you took it." I'm like, "You gave it to me. You were with me the whole day. You should have told me to eat something before I took it. And it put me on my butt. Gave me a headache. It put me on my butt. So I didn't, I tried it again. I got my own pre-workout stuff after that. But, that's the only time I've sampled like white powder out of a Ziploc baggie.
Yeah, it seems like a risky choice.
It was, yeah. But he's like, no, it's just energy stuff, dude. Bro, trust me. It's not cocaine. Stir it into your soda. However, at this point in the investigation, we're not making any assumptions either way. We're too early in the investigation to make a finding. There's still considerable follow-up that needs to be done, said Zach Doonigan, spokesman for the Salinas Police Department. How about send a sample to the lab? Find out what it is.
Yeah.
Salinas High School principal Hugo Mariscal sent the letters to families that read in part, "We want to take a moment to address a matter that has come to our attention regarding a staff member. While we are unable to share specific details due to privacy laws, we want to assure you that they were aware of the situation and actively conducting an ongoing investigation in accordance with district policies and state regulations. It's unknown if any kids bought the pills, but KSBW, because it's too expensive, you got to give them free samples first, like drug dealing 101, man.
Yeah, first hit's always free.
Right. Come on. You should know this. Haven't you watched any drug TV show? It's unknown if any kids bought the pills, but KSBW 8 is told the pills may have been Tylenol and was just a bad joke on behalf of the math teacher. If they, students, see a teacher even joking about that kind of situation, then what kind of example is that setting to our children? I think that's atrocious. He doesn't know these children's medical history. He doesn't know, what their allergies are. And he's hawking a secret pill that they could then take and something really horrible could happen, said the concerned parent. What if it was like children's Tylenol? Like just the weakest painkiller you could have.
Yeah.
It's not even good stuff.
Well, I mean, I would imagine that that's a danger for some humans. Either way.
Okay.
Maybe not. I don't know.
But if you're taking, 15 Tylenol a week, maybe. I don't know.
To me, the larger point here is that there's no way you could possibly know all the teachers that your student is going to encounter, and
well, I mean, they have parent-teacher conference.
So this is what you're gonna get.
Okay.
I mean, this is the natural outcome of what they set up there.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but at the same time, I don't think the situation would be much different in a private school.
No.
Right? Private schools are pretty much set up to mirror the public school model, just cost more and theoretically better information.
Yeah, because there are a lot of incentives to do so.
Yeah. Well, and state regulations, right? Restrict what you're allowed to teach.
Yeah, some of my family out west tried to build a more efficient school, or at least a less insane type of a school. And they didn't get too far into it before they found out why they all go the way they go.
Yeah.
And it's heavily manipulated.
Even homeschooling, right? Like a lot of homeschooling programs within the state, you have to pass some state exam to prove that you're keeping on pace with what they're doing in the public school.
That's right.
Yeah. KSBW8 has verified the name of the math teacher in question, but is not identifying him because he has not been charged with a crime. However, the school principal has assured families that he is not on campus as we complete our process. Oh, there's an update. We want to get into that after the break. A follow-up message was given to KSBW8 from Salinas High School after the story initially aired at 6 p.m. on Thursday.
Well, what do you think about teachers selling kids
test-enhancing drugs
and homework drugs? Give us a call, 603-283-6160.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. It was a week of uncertainty, flip-flops, diplomatic discussions and moving deadlines, all surrounding US tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration implemented new 10% import duties on China and 25% on its two nearest neighbours, to only then reverse course and delay those Canada and Mexico tariffs for a month. All that uncertainty unsettled global markets amid fears of a painful and costly trade war. FSN's Tony Waterman reported on the retaliation moves.
Within minutes of the new U.S. tariffs taking effect, China and Canada retaliated, hitting the U.S. with fresh tariffs of their own on everything from cars to cotton to wine, beer, and Florida orange juice. Mexico, Canada, and China are the U.S.'s top three trade partners, and a trade war threatens to upend more than $2 trillion in trade, much of the cost passed along to consumers. Trump wants the countries to do more to stem the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. All three deny they are responsible for the U.S.'s drug problem.
Leaders of the European Union's member states ramped up support for Ukraine this week with an emergency summit in Brussels. It followed Washington's decision to freeze military aid to Kiev and cut off intelligence sharing. FSN's William Denslow was watching developments from the Belgium capital.
Senior EU officials say the changing policy from the US when it comes to Ukraine is the basis of this emergency summit. The focus is on how Ukraine's European allies can ramp up support in the short term, while also providing longer-term security guarantees, such as a possible peacekeeping force. Leaders will also discuss the European Commission's roughly $850 billion rearm plan to bolster the bloc's defence capabilities. European powers are scrambling to retain Washington's support for Ukraine, but this summit is an opportunity to prepare for a scenario where it's without its transatlantic partner. William Denslow, Brussels.
Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine are set to hold talks in Saudi Arabia next week aimed at creating a ceasefire agreement in the conflict with Russia. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Kiev.
After President Zelensky meets the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday, his team, but crucially not Mr. Zelensky himself, will stay on in the country for meetings with the US delegation. Washington has made no secret of its dissatisfaction with the Ukrainian leader, and the president's chief of staff is likely to head up the Ukrainian delegation. According to Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff, the idea for the talks in Saudi Arabia is to, quote, get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire. President Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine is not only ready to take the necessary steps for peace, but, quote, we are also proposing those steps.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. Let us know what you're thinking about tonight. I want to let you know that Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Richie Rich.
And we were talking previously about a teacher who thought it would be a fantastic idea to sell his students pills that would give them better test scores.
It kind of has like, I've never seen Breaking Bad, but it kind of gave those vibes, right? Oh, he's just trying to get a side hustle. Public school teachers aren't paid enough.
Yeah.
Like, how many students do you need to get hooked on like $75 a week or even more, for the homework pills?
So is this like a solid middle class type school, or is this
I'll leave it for the callers. I don't know what kind of neighborhood Salinas, California is, but enough where,
Yeah. Enough where he thought he could at least get
away with it, or the parents were concerned enough.
Yeah.
Like if you were in like, the suburbs of an urban neighborhood, I don't know if parents would have got up in arms over it. He's stealing from your market share. Take him out.
So did they get any further into this, into what happened here?
Well, not really. Well, so this is the follow-up message that the principal sent to the students and family. Dear Salinas High School families, this is a follow-up to the message sent on February 19th regarding a staff member. While we are legally unable to share personnel details, we want to assure you that a thorough investigation was conducted in collaboration with our Human Resource Department and the Salinas Police Department. The investigation found no findings, and the staff member in question will return to campus tomorrow. We thank our Salinas High School community for speaking up and encourage you to continue to share your voice when you have concerns. As a reminder, while we cannot discuss personnel matters, we remain committed to listening, addressing concerns, and fostering a safe and supportive learning environment for all students. If you have any general questions, please feel free to contact the school office. Sincerely, Hugo Mariscal, Principal, Salinas High School.
So, sorry, I missed that one part. Did it say that it was the school police?
No, a Human Resource Department in conjunction with the local police.
Oh, okay.
Found no findings.
Huh.
So he had didn't even have the pills in his briefcase, maybe.
Didn't find anything.
Didn't find anything. Didn't even confirm that he did or didn't do this.
So I guess the teacher must have stuck to, no, those kids are lying?
Maybe.
Huh.
Or I don't have to answer questions, lawyered up. Doesn't say. But, if he had like his own little bottle of Tylenol, because those rowdy, rambunctious high school kids just give him a headache daily.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, anybody want, some test-enhancing pills?
Yeah.
Right, maybe it was a joke. Maybe all he had was like Tylenol in his briefcase. What's in the pills? Like you care. Like Salinas High School student is gonna buy a pill for $5 and send it off to Arrowhead to get tested.
Right, do research on what it's going to do to him and all. And that's not going to happen.
That would have been smart. If you really wanted to get him in trouble, you should have bought a pill. Then at least you'd have the evidence.
Right.
Can I get a receipt for that, Mr. Stevens? I need this in writing for it's a tax write-off.
Yep. Can I get a receipt, please? That's a funny story. Well, I've got a story that's less funny than that, but is also kind of a womp womp. This is
womp womp.
This is from Salon.
Reputable news source.
Yeah, I guess so.
I've heard of them. I don't know what WSBW is or whatever it was.
Is that what the last story was from?
It was the local news.
This is what happens when someone appeases barbarians. Putin defies Trump, escalates attack.
Okay.
Hours after President Donald Trump told reporters in the Oval Office, where he publicly berated Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Oh, did you see that? That was so entertaining.
I did kind of see it. I saw also some remakes of it that when they were dubbing in some other stuff. It pretty hilarious.
I did not watch the full interview. I regret that, but it was it was 50 minutes of video, and then all the clips came out of just the 2-minute interaction where he's yelling at each other.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's entertainment, right?
Yep.
So President Donald Trump told reporters that his administration is doing very well with Russia, and it may be easier. It may be easier dealing with Russian President Vladimir Putin than Ukraine. The Russian military launched a series of deadly missile and drone attacks, killing dozens of civilians. There's the womp womp. This is what happens when someone appeases barbarians, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk wrote on X. More bombs, more aggression, more victims.
Are they suggesting that he wouldn't have bombed like it's a war. It's been a war for like 3 years. They've been bombing. Each side has been bombing the other side as best they can. Yeah. And so all of a sudden Donald Trump is like, well, maybe we should negotiate with Putin, and they drop another bomb. It's like, oh, this is why we don't negotiate.
It does sound kind of like that's the story's suggestion there.
Okay. Well, folly on Salon then for making that suggestion.
Yeah, agreed. After our emergency services arrived at the scene of the first wave of missiles, Zelensky wrote on X, Russia launched another strike deliberately targeting the rescuers. I actually think Putin is doing what anybody else would do, Trump told reporters at the White House Friday afternoon. He wants to get it ended. This week, the Trump administration suspended weapons shipments to Ukraine and stopped sharing satellite intelligence with the nation. In a Truth Social post earlier Friday, Trump attempted to pressure Putin with sanctions. Based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached.
Okay.
A final settlement agreement on peace, huh?
Well, Trump's the negotiator, right? Like, I'm not taking his side, but that's how he always positions himself.
Yeah.
The art of the deal, we got to negotiate, right? So he wants to be the one responsible for bringing an end to the hostilities and return to whatever modicum of peace is left. And if that means Russia stops bombing and does a ceasefire to negotiate, like, fine. How can you be mad about that? Only the warmongers want the actual violence to continue.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true, because the only people who really make out well in a war is like bankers.
Yeah.
And politicians. And
weapon salesmen.
Yeah.
Manufacturers.
Well, those guys are usually really closely related to bankers. I wish I could do a Trump voice, like a really good Trump impersonation. That's just so funny. But
do your best. It's funny regardless.
To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you, Trump wrote. Russia attacked Ukraine hours later. So, I don't know. Like, it's a complicated situation there, and the U.S. really made a mess of it anyways in the first place. Anything that makes the killing stop is what I'm in favor of, I guess.
I get frustrated when people make the claim that it was an unprovoked attack by Russia to start the war.
Right. That was about as provoked an attack as there can be.
Yeah, how far, if you start, like, with Israel and Palestine, right, the hostility started October 7th, like, period, end of story.
No,
there's no prehistory.
It goes way back, and
it goes way back.
Provoked pretty much daily for a real long time.
Now, I will admit that the Ukraine itself is in the midst of what we'll call like the proxy war, right? It's really Russia versus NATO, and the United States involvement is, NATO backed or part of that aspect of it, and Ukraine's kind of caught in the middle.
Yeah, I won't deny Ukraine is in a tough spot.
Yeah, but from their perspective, without the help of NATO and everything else, like, they've lost. It's over. Everything else is just collateral because they're refusing to wave the white flag and cede territory.
Yeah.
Now, if you're saying like they ought not cede territory, well, then you have to go win. And if you're not capable of winning, then you just lose. And it doesn't even seem like average Ukrainians want to continue, because I don't know how valid the stories are, but I've seen the headlines, I've seen the news articles, I've seen video of them just conscripting males off the street. Like, okay, you're going to the front lines now to fight this war that you don't care about, because what's the square footage of Ukraine? It's in an area that you don't even live in, that Russia's taking control of, but you're expected to go defend it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a part that I'm pretty sure had voted to join Russia anyways.
I don't know if there was a vote, but yeah, they were ethnically Russians.
Yep.
Getting violently attacked by the Ukrainian government, and they went, "Hey, please help, neighbor. Like, we're you. Let's just join you." And Ukraine went, "Nope, we're taking it back. Like, those are our people to bomb and control and
Yeah.
mutilate.
And as far as I know, Russia hasn't been all that pushy this whole time. Like they're not just sitting back and taking it, but you kind of blew up their pipeline down to Germany, and now Russia suffers and Germany suffers, so good job there.
Well, I mean, again, depending on what side you're on, right? Like Russia isn't advancing, and that's either because they had no intention on advancing, because they got the territory that they wanted, and they wanted to cede that into Russia, right? Or, if you're on the left and you want to pump more billions into this money laundering scheme, right? It's because the Ukrainians are holding down the fort, right?
Yeah.
They're hold the line so Russia doesn't take over everything, and Russia's like, no, we got what we came for. We're just, we'll keep this, and you guys can have the rest of that. Don't join NATO.
Right.
If you join NATO, we're going to take more. That's on you. You're not allowed. That was the agreement, NATO.
Well,
You're not allowed.
That was the agreement that got broken a long time ago. But
by NATO.
Right now, we have a caller on the line, on the screen caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Thank you there, Brother Stu. Brother Richie, good evening.
Oh, hey, Ricky.
Good evening.
Well, before I get into current events, I did want to ask you about something.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, this happened a couple months ago. I'm having problems accessing the Free Talk Live website. I can't access LRN.FM either. I remember a couple months back when Captain was still on, I mentioned it to them and they fixed it. I'm using Chrome on my phone. I have a Galaxy S23 Ultra. And what I'm getting is that it took too long.
Okay.
That's the error I'm getting on Chrome anyways, depending on what. I've tried different browsers. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I know Captain fixed it.
So the unfortunate thing for you is neither I or Stu do tech support, nor do we do tech support over the phone. So if you're having issues with the website, we will definitely pass this up the chain of command to people who can take a look at it. All right.
Yeah, that's all you got to do, because that's what I think Captain did, and they fixed it. Now, I can pull you up on YouTube.
Okay.
So at least I got that going for me.
You should be able to get us on Odyssey as well.
Okay. I don't even know how to access. How do I even access that?
Same way you would YouTube. You just go to the website.
Odyssey instead.
Yep, Odyssey.com.
Yeah.
It's spelled weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just search for Odyssey. I'm sure it'll come up.
I mean, if you can get to the show on YouTube, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Right. But if the website's down for whatever reason, we'll pass that up the chain. But we're definitely not doing tech support.
I think it has something to do with galaxies. Honestly, I'm starting to wonder because I don't know. I had it before and it got fixed. I mean, I'm sure other people can access it, or everybody's freaking out.
I'm on an iPhone using the Brave browser, and I typed in freetalklive.com, and something popped up. It redirected to blog.freetalklive.com, but there's stuff there.
That's what I was. Well, that's the thing. You know what the funny thing is? I get the URL up in the address bar.
Okay.
But I can't access the website. It says that it takes too long.
Okay.
And that's either by directly entering the URL or going from a search result.
I'm going to say that sounds like a problem with your phone and or your connection. Because again, I just typed in LRN.FM and a website popped up. All right, listen and watch. Welcome to LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. So
yeah, I know. Well, pass it on anyways, because I remember I mentioned in the past when I had the same problem.
Okay.
And it got remedied.
Okay. What else did you have on your mind?
Well, I haven't really talked much about what's going on. I heard you talk about the Ukraine stuff. Here's my answer to it. The Ukraine situation is a very complex situation.
Is it?
Now, the best answer would have been...
It's more complicated than Kamala Harris wanted to say it was, certainly.
Well, it's very complicated. And the best answer ever would have been for us not to get involved in the first place. Now, unfortunately, Biden decided to give them weapons and things like that.
That's because he has family financial interest in the region.
That some say this.
Yeah,
yes.
Burisma is the company. Go ahead and look that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even some say. That's like verifiable. Hunter Biden or whoever was like on the board of directors making millions of dollars from the energy supply.
There's a soundbite of it saying it himself that if that he flew over there and threatened them that they weren't getting the $1 billion from the U.S. unless they fired the
prosecutor,
the investigator, or the prosecutor,
whatever it was.
It's even more complicated because what I wish that really this is something that Europe should be doing. They should be fighting this if they need to help Ukraine. It should not be us. But the complicated part is it is us now. And
doesn't have to be. Trump's pulling out.
Depend on us.
Never thought I'd say that.
Now these guys depend on us.
No, but they've always depended. They could not. This war would not have gone on for 3 years without United States involvement or external involvement. If not the United States, then Europe, and go back to the founders.
And believe me,
trade with all, entangling alliances with none.
And kind of if I'm Ukraine and I looked around at the world stage, I don't know how it makes more sense to be buddies with the U.S. than it does to be buddies with Russia. It seems like you would shift your diplomacy that way a long time ago anyways.
Because the U.S. overthrew the legitimate government of the Ukraine and installed Zelensky in 2014.
Oh,
the
that's
old
right.
government was buddy-buddy with Russia, and then the United States intervened.
Oh, so this is even a further provoked attack than...
Yes!
Yeah, I knew all this. Most people don't know this stuff, though.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, what's complicated about it is, in all honesty, I don't want to be messing with Ukraine, but at the same time, I don't want Putin to conquer Ukraine and start moving his way through Europe either.
I don't think he ever talked about wanting to conquer Ukraine. He wants access to a port, and he wants to not have NATO on his front step.
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with Stu more on this, right? It's the NATO encroachment that provoked it.
Well, the NATO deal's gone. That's gone. That ain't going to happen.
Okay.
That's history.
Well, the deal is history because NATO broke it. So, anything Russia does, you can call it unprovoked if you want to, listen to the brainwashed mainstream media, but it's reactionary to NATO encroachment. If they just, stuck to the deal, then if he did this, it would have been unprovoked. But it's not. It's because they encroached, and the deal was not to have NATO alliances encroach on Russian territory.
Well, NATO's like a lot of things, Richie. It's something that in an original idea sounds good, but it totally isn't. It can be so easily corrupted.
Yes, and so you can't blame Russia for defending its territory against a corrupt alliance. I mean, you can, but you'd be wrong.
I can see them defending their territory, but I thought that territory belonged to Ukraine. I thought
the question, the territory in question, is ethnically Russians who were being attacked by the Ukrainian government and pled with Russia to basically rescue them and take them back and rejoin Russia to get away from the terror that they were experiencing under Volodymyr Zelensky's Ukrainian government.
Yeah, Russia said okay, and Ukraine said, "Don't you dare!"
Right, and that again, Ricky, that again is why that Russia really hasn't advanced further into Ukraine. It's not that Ukraine is doing a great job of holding the line; it's that they don't need any more territory.
Well, what I don't understand is if that is the case, why don't these people within in these areas stand up against our government?
They did, and they got support from Russian military, right? That's how they stood up. They said, "We're not going to take this anymore. Hey, Russia, will you help us fight back this onslaught from the Ukrainian government?" And Russia said, "Sure." They fought back.
That may be very well,
they got help.
That may be very well what Trump's going to do. I've been hearing a lot of mumblings about that land. So maybe that's what's going through his head. I don't want to speak for him.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's going through his mind. And I'll be honest with you. If the people really want to be part of Russia, they should be able, how I think about it, they should be allowed to leave.
Yes.
and be part of Russia.
Yes.
Yep. Secession should be celebrated worldwide.
But Ukraine is getting financial support and military aid from the rest of the world to not allow them to leave.
Why?
Because it's financially beneficial to do so.
And because it really bugs Russia.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, war is not an answer.
If you were the tyrant with a whole bunch of territory, like say you're like the Keene Street Gang, right, or the Philadelphia Mafia or whatever, and like some of your people went, we really want to join this other gang. Like, would you let them go? No, you might fight over it, right? We see this within the United States, right? There's multiple movements. I don't know them off the top of my head, but multiple movements in the United States for certain locales to join other states, right? Like there's territories in Northern California that we don't really agree with what's going on in Los Angeles and Sacramento. We'd rather be with Oregon.
Yep, and Western Oregon would rather be part of Idaho.
Right, and they don't let them leave.
Yeah.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I think, Putin's definitely friendly with Trump. So that being said, all he's got to do is then lay down and say, hey, play his cards and say, hey, this is the case what we were just talking about. I think any reasonable man would say, okay, fine. And then we would withdraw from Ukraine. I think we pretty much withdrew anyways.
Well, Trump wants an end to the hostilities.
That's kind of the case, isn't it? We're pretty much done with them.
Yes, but again, it's a proxy war. It's a proxy war, and the people controlling Ukraine, aside from Volodymyr Zelensky, right, the puppets, the puppet masters behind the puppet, don't want to cede that land to Russia. So anytime it comes to it's the parallels with Israel and Palestine are astounding. It's again, they come to the table and they go like, well, if we can end hostilities if this section of Ukraine just becomes Russia, right? And then the textbooks, they got to print new books for 2026 and redraw the maps on all the globes, right? Just like when they changed it from the USSR back to Russia, it's like, oh man, we got to change the ink cartridge and print more stuff, right? They go like, this is now Russian territory. Ukraine, you still keep the rest, but don't join NATO. That's it.
We really broke the cardinal rule by giving them weapons and stuff. It was insanity. We
that's
gave
a
them
bad
weapons
choice
to fight. It's like we're playing a very dangerous game with this.
And Trump doesn't want to play the dangerous game. That was part of the clip when he was talking to Zelensky. It's like, you're playing with World War III here. I don't want to do that. Just give up the land, stop the hostilities.
What I love is when they complained and said, hey, at a certain point, you only gave us enough so we could carry on and not win.
Yeah. Yep. Funny thing to complain about, huh? Thanks for the call, Ricky. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about tonight. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Is there still too much month left at the end of the money? I'm Holland Cook with the Inflation Hacks. Okay, you refinanced your mortgage back before rates went up. Walmart is now your grocery store and you're buying in bulk. But before you go there, you hit the dollar store. You went online to see how much your car is worth, and the app asked if the tank was empty or full. How else to make ends meet? On our blog, Kevin says, I've been trying forever, but this is what it took to quit smoking. He says he went to a hypnosis seminar and it worked. He says, I feel great. Though many ex-smokers gain weight, Kevin says these supermarket prices kind of help. And Tricia shares that she bought stock in an oil company at the beginning of the pandemic and it quadrupled in price. But she says, now I have to sell it to buy gas. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. It was a week of uncertainty, flip-flops, diplomatic discussions and moving deadlines, all surrounding US tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration implemented new 10% import duties on China and 25% on its 2 nearest neighbours, to only then reverse course and delay those Canada and Mexico tariffs for a month. All that uncertainty unsettled global markets amid fears of a painful and costly trade war. FSN's Tony Waterman reported on the retaliation moves.
Within minutes of the new U.S. tariffs taking effect, China and Canada retaliated, hitting the U.S. with fresh tariffs of their own on everything from cars to cotton to wine, beer, and Florida orange juice. Mexico, Canada, and China are the U.S.'s top 3 trade partners, and a trade war threatens to upend more than $2 trillion in trade, much of the cost passed along to consumers. Trump wants the countries to do more to stem the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. All 3 deny they are responsible for the U.S.'s drug problem.
Leaders of the European Union's member states ramped up support for Ukraine this week with an emergency summit in Brussels. It followed Washington's decision to freeze military aid to Kiev and cut off intelligence sharing. FSN's William Denslow was watching developments from the Belgium capital.
Senior EU officials say the changing policy from the US when it comes to Ukraine is the basis of this emergency summit. The focus is on how Ukraine's European allies can ramp up support in the short term, while also providing longer-term security guarantees, such as a possible peacekeeping force. Leaders will also discuss the European Commission's roughly $850 billion rearm plan to bolster the bloc's defence capabilities. European powers are scrambling to retain Washington's support for Ukraine, but this summit is an opportunity to prepare for a scenario where it's without its transatlantic partner. William Denslow, Brussels.
Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine are set to hold talks in Saudi Arabia next week aimed at creating a ceasefire agreement in the conflict with Russia. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Kiev.
After President Zelensky meets the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday, his team, but crucially not Mr. Zelensky himself, will stay on in the country for meetings with the US delegation. Washington has made no secret of its dissatisfaction with the Ukrainian leader, and the president's chief of staff is likely to head up the Ukrainian delegation. According to Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff, the idea for the talks in Saudi Arabia is to, quote, get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire. President Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine is not only ready to take the necessary steps for peace, but, quote, we are also proposing those steps.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN. The Gaza ceasefire agreement was in limbo this last week. Phase 1 expired last weekend with no clear path forward to move on to the second phase. US President Donald Trump threatened Hamas, telling the group it was their final chance to release the remaining hostages. US Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, plans to travel to the region next week. FSN's Giles Gibson has this update from Tel Aviv.
Speaking to reporters, Steve Witkoff did not reveal exact details about his trip to the Middle East next week, simply telling them that he'll visit 4 countries. The special envoy did confirm that the Trump administration recently held talks with Hamas, reversing a long-standing US policy of not negotiating directly with terror organizations. though he admitted the priority is Idan Alexander, who's believed to be the last living US citizen in captivity in Gaza. Witkoff insisted the aim is still to secure the release of all remaining hostages. No hostages have been released since the first phase of the ceasefire agreement expired last weekend. Giles Gibson, Tel Aviv.
And with that Gaza ceasefire agreement looking precarious, the United Nations this week urged Israel to restart aid deliveries to the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that aid would be blocked, accusing Hamas of stealing supplies. FSN's Jody Jacobs sent this report from the United Nations headquarters in New York.
The United Nations says the lives of thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip hang in the balance, warning that an already catastrophic situation on the ground risks deteriorating even further unless the flow of aid resumes without delay. Humanitarians say if the blockade continues, at least 80 community kitchens may soon run out of stock. Thousands of aid trucks moved into Gaza under the first phase of the ceasefire deal, which started on January the 19th.
And that was the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
With job numbers near historic lows, Forbes magazine has released a list of tips for finding a job, all of which involve witnessing an employer murder someone. Forbes says despite the grim economy, employers are still hungry for talented workers who know how important it is to forget about whatever they think they saw or heard.
So me and a couple of friends were out smoking at the Viaduct the other day, and we saw this really rich guy in a Mercedes pull up in his car and drop nothing. Now I'm the Vice President of International Development.
According to Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein, we had a great quarter and hired hundreds of new employees. I haven't done anything wrong, and all my employees will tell you the same thing because that's the deal we had. But the article warns that stumbling onto a coke-fueled CEO strangling a prostitute isn't a foolproof method for finding work because employers are just as likely to murder you as they are to hire you.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. The phone number to get on the air is 603-283-6160. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about. I'd like to thank Benjamin for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Benjamin went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks again to Benjamin and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Richie Rich.
And I think we'll go right to the phones where we've got an unscreened caller. Unscreened caller, you're on the air. Hello?
People don't have a right. Hey.
What's up, my dude?
Hey.
Oh, man, I thought Bonnie fired you.
It's your boy, Richie Rich.
People don't have a right to secede. Stop saying that. Stop saying people in modern democracies, they don't have a right to secede. If you want a divorce, it's called renunciation, right? Secession is theft, right? There's no useful distinction. There's no useful distinction between public and private property in modern democracy. They're the same thing.
You know that borders change more often than you think, right? Right? Like
what are you talking about?
Borders change.
Borders change. People cede land and borders to other entities all the time.
Yeah, but a change in borders. If there's a change in property ownership, some can be theft under libertarianism and some isn't.
Okay, right? So let's assume for a minute
libertarianism is theft.
Let's assume that Donald Trump gets what he wants and Canada becomes like the 51st state. And the Canadian government cedes that land to the United States. Is that allowed under modern democracy?
Yeah.
Why?
It's co-owned.
Because it's not co-owned. It just becomes the United States.
Public land is co-owned. It's just a form of co-ownership. It's just everybody has an equal say, basically.
But they're not going to negotiate with all of the citizens of Canada. They're going to negotiate with the representative.
Yes, that's how co-ownership sometimes works. When you have a representative, you have a say in your vote to elect the representatives. It's just like a corporation, right? So if a corporation sells out to another corporation and you own some stock, if you lose the vote, are your rights violated under libertarianism? No. You knew the deal.
Okay.
Right?
The deal
right?
is you may choose between fascist candidate A and communist candidate B.
That's the consequence of not having birthright to any land, right? You were given ownership of this land, partial ownership of this land through the grace of the existing citizens before you were born.
Well, it turns out that co-owning the land with millions of people doesn't work.
Yes,
but even under your understanding, right? It allows people to cede the land under a modern democracy, which means your initial statement about people seceding being invalid is invalid.
No, first off, I'm not making any claims about how well this works. I'm just analyzing this. I'm talking to Stu. I'm analyzing this under libertarianism. So you have to deal with this dilemma, not me. Now, what did you say, Rich? Who's ceding who? What's ceding what?
You said that seceding land under a modern democracy is invalid, and then in the next sentence said that Canada is well within its right to cede land to the United States.
No.
Within a modern democracy.
Yeah, that's what we call a contradiction.
It sounds like a contradiction. You can try to resolve it.
Here's the resolution. You're conflating the two terms, seceding and unilaterally seceding, right? Those are two different things. When your representatives make the decision to cede land to another entity or to incorporate their land into another entity, right? That's different from unilateral secession, which is theft.
So it's only a one-way thing. Like Ottawa, what are the provinces?
Oh,
I don't know. So some of the provinces can't leave, but some can.
The representatives have the authority to cede land to another authority or to incorporate their land into another entity.
Okay, so Ontario, right? Ontario's a province. Ontario cannot secede, but Canada can cede Ontario to the United States. That's your position.
Say that again.
Ontario, which I believe is a province in Canada, forgive me if I failed geography here, Ontario cannot secede and become its own independent province in Canada, but Canada as a whole can cede Ontario to the United States. It can't be independent. It must join another massive democracy. That's your position.
Who's it? Yeah, well, yeah, no part of a bigger corporation can secede unilaterally without the approval of the rest of the entity, right? It's all co-owned.
So if New Hampshire wanted to secede under your paradigm, we would have to get permission from the other 49 states.
Yes, and that is allowed under the Constitution as ruled by the Supreme Court. You're allowed to bilaterally secede. But you guys don't want to. And number two, you guys don't want freedom. You want to steal land from the collective.
No, but if we vote in enough, there's like two things going on here. There's inside the system activists and outside the system activists in New Hampshire. And the inside the system activists have put forth secession legislation, right? And that's by the book. What's that?
Is it unilateral or bilateral secession?
I don't know.
Are these measures they're putting forth?
I don't know, but if it's in the Constitution and they're doing it by the book, I would presume it's all well and good legally.
Yeah,
and they're not going to be stealing from anybody because they're in charge of the government that represents New Hampshire.
I never saw a do not compete clause that prevented it. No language really prevents it. There's nowhere specifically. Well, yeah, the threat of a jackboot definitely works.
It's called Texas versus White. Are you talking about something that prevents unilateral secession, self-determination? It's called Texas versus White.
Okay.
The Supreme Court ruling that prevents unilateral secession. And in that
So
ruling,
Texas could not secede from the United States. They have their own secession movement there. They want out.
Not unilaterally. You have to get the approval of all the states. Then you can secede. Otherwise, it's theft.
Where is that in the Constitution or in the agreement? I don't care what the Supreme Court
versus White.
No, that's not in the Constitution. That's a court case. I want to know where. I want to know where in the original agreement and when joining the Union, it states that you're not allowed to leave without permission.
The Constitution gives the Supreme Court to make interpretations of the Constitution.
Well, again, cite me article, line, and section in the Constitution where it says that you may join, but you're not allowed to leave without permission.
It's in the powers of the Supreme Court.
No, that's you just said the powers of the Supreme Court is to make interpretations, and they're interpreting something in the Constitution, and I want to know article and section that they're interpreting to mean you can join but cannot leave without permission.
There are a lot of things the founders knew this. The Constitution is not going to be perfect. It's not going to address things that should be addressed, right?
Well,
and that's where
yes,
the Supreme,
yes, and
can take the will of
That's why you have Articles 9 and 10 in the Constitution. Most people land on Article 10 that states, very almost specifically that which is not laid out here is left to the states and the people thereof.
Yeah, you don't make that interpretation, right? You don't make the interpretation.
I don't need to make an interpretation. It's written. That's what the amendment reads.
It's not okay. Look at the consequences if you take the 10th Amendment literally. You could not. So if that were true, if you were to take the 10th Amendment purely literally, right? You could the right to travel, the right to privacy, slavery, all could be determined by state governments.
Yes,
right? It could be legal.
It could be, and for a long time it was. And then they fought a war to change it.
Could prevent the right to travel between states if they wanted to. This would be all self-determined within the states.
Yes, they could. It doesn't make sense to do so, but they could. Right? Like the interstate highway system is extra constitutional.
Yeah, but again, you ultimately the Supreme Court powers were given to that before the 10th Amendment. Right, and number two, look at another consequence. All the amendments after the 10th Amendment would be virtually null and void, right? Those would have to be ruled upon by the states. I
don't know what all of them say. There's like 16 after that, but yes, let's null and void the 16th Amendment.
Yeah, I got to the 6th one, and it made me throw up when it said all they have to do is make a treaty, and then I'm bound to it, and that's about as far as I got before I said your game is ridiculous, and there's no way you can expect to just rope me into this with a social contract.
There are dry counties that don't allow you to purchase alcohol, even though alcohol prohibition is like repealed by the Constitution.
Yeah,
they've self-determined that in their little area you're not allowed, and per your suggestion, Skeeter, they could leave. You were absolutely right. You can go elsewhere.
Your ability to renounce is true divorce, right? Secession is theft of separate property in a divorce.
No, you just said you can do it bilaterally.
Yes, yeah. You can also. That's also your other option. You can try to convince the rest of the states to let you leave with the land. It's like letting you. It's like.
And if the New Hampshire representatives are going through that process
before the marriage
in the state legislature to make that happen, what's your beef?
No, I have no beef with that, but that's not what you're doing.
I'm not doing anything.
I'm
doing a radio show.
All the legislation that I see that New Hampshire's putting forth on secession are forms of unilateral secession.
You're collectivizing me with the government of New Hampshire.
Yeah,
I'm not doing anything.
Well, that's when you're a citizen of New Hampshire. That's what you are. When you choose not to leave, you are a part of the gang.
Am I a citizen of New Hampshire? What made me a citizen of New Hampshire?
Are you resident of New Hampshire?
What makes me a resident?
do you have a New Hampshire's driver's license?
No.
Or you're a sovereign citizen?
No. That's a contradiction in terms as well.
Yeah, we all know sovereign citizen's a nonsense term. Much like conspiracy theories.
No, it's a derogatory term because
it's also derogatory, but they use it themselves and they're wrong.
It throws you off of the notion that you're trying to hone in on. It's a distraction or a diversion.
What makes me a New Hampshire citizen? I didn't swear an oath of allegiance. They owe me no protection.
Well, you were born in the United States. I know you have federal citizenship.
Okay.
That's given to you by the 14th Amendment, which would be nullified by the 10th Amendment if you take it literally.
As it should, because immigration is not in the Constitution. And it's not even in the 14th Amendment.
It is. The Constitution, the Constitution is not perfect. And you ultimately, you have no right to this land. However,
I have equal right to everybody else per Skeeter's argument.
Yes, you do. And
okay.
Then where's my chunk?
So shut up. So try to convince.
So here's another contradiction that you're presenting, Skeeter.
You can leave. There's no what contradiction. I'm working.
I want my 1/340 millionth equal part seated.
Right. Where's mine?
Where's my chunk of one in 340 million?
Eager to get building. Let me know where it is.
Just give me that.
You have a vote. You do not own that whatever piece of you
just said I owned it. I owned it equally.
You said I owned it. Yeah. So how can I steal it?
Yes, you do.
So I can't steal my own property.
In the form of a vote.
That's not ownership.
Can someone with a share in a company just walk onto the property and steal a piece of equipment that's worth that percentage of the company?
No,
can they do that? Or does that violate the Does that violate the NAP?
They could liquidate it though, and then exchange it for.
No, answer the question, yes or no. That's a yes or no question.
Yes, in a roundabout way, they can.
No, don't go through it. Here we come with the stupid little thingies. Roundabout way? What are you talking about? Roundabout way?
They can liquidate it. So let me know how to liquidate my 345 millionth of a.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. Let me know how to liquidate that and then make an actual land purchase with it. How do I get my chunk if this is all collectively owned?
You
vote.
You don't get a chunk. You don't get a chunk.
So what part of it is actually mine then?
Right.
So what do I own? Like not much?
I don't get a chunk. I don't get the whole thing, but somehow I own
it. This is starting to sound like I'm the property.
You own the partial right to control it. You can vote on measures on what happens with this land.
No, but voting doesn't do anything.
Me.
Well, again, if we have the right to vote,
because you lose the vote.
If under your paradigm, Skeeter, we have the right to vote, and there are people in New Hampshire going through the voting process to cede the land from the United States, they're doing it legitimately.
Any of that started.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear any of that. Oh, I was muted. I was talking.
I said you said we have the right to vote. And so a handful of representatives in the United States and a handful of their constituents are voting through that process to cede the land commonly referred to as, commonly referred to as the state of New Hampshire to its own independent territory.
Yeah.
They're exercising that right to vote.
And on top of that, when Utah voted to have a medical marijuana program, the legislature there said no thanks, even though it was an overwhelming vote yes. So how you tell me how it works that my vote is.
If that's how the system works, that's how the system works.
Okay, and the system is working then that allows New Hampshire to secede from the Union, and they're working through that process. Now, as an anarchist or a big small L libertarian, like, I don't think we should have to go through that process because I'm a big fan of, actual defense of property. But if they're doing it legitimately,
no, you're not.
What do you mean I'm not?
They're
voting. They're proposing legislation in the government system to cede the land.
You're not. You guys are not prepared to defend yourselves, right? You guys are totally not. You guys don't understand how big collectives can be and how they can overrun a smaller one, right? You need New Hampshire in order to sit in the belly of the best defense in the world. You want the free ride.
No, we don't.
Nope. The United States.
I'd take her over him.
Not only do we not want the free ride, New Hampshire is a net taxpayer into the federal system.
And the optics
much like California.
And the optics aren't good when the United States military crushes one of the states.
If they can.
Right. Even tries to.
What are you talking?
Like, they'd have a hard time with Utah and Idaho and Wyoming for sure.
Maybe New Hampshire.
Why don't you go?
New Hampshire might be tough.
Why don't you go secede the land next on the Ukraine border?
It's already been ceded by Russia. They took it.
Why don't you go secede land there? Let me see how well you guys defend yourselves against a bigger collective. Even they don't run as efficiently as maybe an anarcho-capitalist market.
If the Free State Project said move to Ukraine, I'd probably be in Ukraine, right? And Mark Edge, co-founder of the show, has moved any number of times trying to find a place more ideal than New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project to go to.
Guess what? Each society tries to move to are protected by bigger governments that those governments are probably in treaty with the United States.
And I'm not suggesting it's a wise move on his part, but at least he's doing it, right? I'm fine here with where there's numbers. The strength in numbers is growing in our favor. Because people are moving as part of the Free State Project. Some people leave, some people come in.
What numbers are you talking about? The size of New Hampshire is smaller than my city.
What's your point? I'm talking about people moving to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project to affect change both in the system and out. Like the amount of free staters or free state liberty-minded individuals in the local government is enough to affect change because they have the veto powers, right? Anybody who wants to pass anything has to get their approval to get it passed.
I'm not talking about how to get measures passed locally. I'm talking about how effective your national defense will be versus a bigger collective like Russia or China. If they're
not going to come after New Hampshire.
Yeah, what do we need to defend against here?
Exactly. You know why, right?
Because they're foolish to do so, and not because of the military might of the United States.
Yeah, wait, say that again. I was laughing.
I said they would be foolish to do so, and it's not because of the military might of the United States.
Okay.
Right? If you're effective trade partners, then the founders trade with all, entangling alliances with none. New Hampshire won't have an entangling alliance defending anybody, defending anything or attacking China or Russia.
Yeah, can you imagine the optics if Trump said, "Hey, Canada, give me Ontario," and Canada said no, and Trump said war? People aren't going to put up with that, man.
Wait, I didn't hear that, but I was formulating.
Where is Russia going to land? Portsmouth? Like, my boss thought this was legit. My boss had a legitimate fear that if New Hampshire was independent or without the military might of the United States government running empire over the world, that Russia would send a armada and land tanks in Portsmouth and run right through the United States.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Because they will face opposition on every block until they hit the Rocky Mountains.
Number one, if they wanted to eliminate you, they could just drop an A-bomb. Number two, they'd first assault you aerially. and
what's the motivation to even do that? If we're good trade partners.
What's that?
I said, what's the motivation to do that if we're good trade partners?
Because democracy and their leaders aren't trying to maximize profit all the time. They can trade.
So they're not evolutionary capitalists then. This doesn't fit the game theory paradigm of how to be a productive member of the world.
That's my argument why democracy ultimately fails. Same thing with.
Then why are you promoting democracy?
Oh my God, you're not understanding my argument. I'm saying
no. I'm refuting it thoroughly and effectively.
Hold on. My ultimate argument with the secession thing is that democracy is compatible with libertarianism.
And we would disagree foundationally and fundamentally.
Yep, I could disagree on that topic with you all day. Thanks for the call, Skeeter. We'll be back with more.
Thwarted yet again!
In a few. This is Free Talk Live. Give us a call, 603-283-6160. Maybe you can make more sense than that caller did.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. It was a week of uncertainty, flip-flops, diplomatic discussions and moving deadlines, all surrounding US tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration implemented new 10% import duties on China and 25% on its two nearest neighbours, to only then reverse course and delay those Canada and Mexico tariffs for a month. All that uncertainty unsettled global markets amid fears of a painful and costly trade war. FSN's Tony Waterman reported on the retaliation moves.
Within minutes of the new U.S. tariffs taking effect, China and Canada retaliated, hitting the U.S. with fresh tariffs of their own on everything from cars to cotton to wine, beer, and Florida orange juice. Mexico, Canada, and China are the U.S.'s top three trade partners, and a trade war threatens to upend more than $2 trillion in trade, much of the cost passed along to consumers. Trump wants the countries to do more to stem the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. All three deny they are responsible for the U.S.'s drug problem.
Leaders of the European Union's member states ramped up support for Ukraine this week with an emergency summit in Brussels. It followed Washington's decision to freeze military aid to Kiev and cut off intelligence sharing. FSN's William Denslow was watching developments from the Belgian capital.
Senior EU officials say the changing policy from the US when it comes to Ukraine is the basis of this emergency summit. The focus is on how Ukraine's European allies can ramp up support in the short term, while also providing longer-term security guarantees, such as a possible peacekeeping force. Leaders will also discuss the European Commission's roughly $850 billion rearm plan to bolster the bloc's defence capabilities. European powers are scrambling to retain Washington's support for Ukraine, but this summit is an opportunity to prepare for a scenario where it's without its transatlantic partner. William Denslow, Brussels.
Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine are set to hold talks in Saudi Arabia next week aimed at creating a ceasefire agreement in the conflict with Russia. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Kiev.
After President Zelensky meets the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday, his team, but crucially not Mr. Zelensky himself, will stay on in the country for meetings with the US delegation. Washington has made no secret of its dissatisfaction with the Ukrainian leader, and the president's chief of staff is likely to head up the Ukrainian delegation. According to Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff, the idea for the talks in Saudi Arabia is to, quote, get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire. President Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine is not only ready to take the necessary steps for peace, but, quote, we are also proposing those steps.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-28 603-6160. Let us know what you're thinking about.
Boobs. Oh. Hot Mike.
Yeah. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Richie Rich.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it will cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You will get a special membership badge that is visible in the Odyssey chat room, and I believe the members-only chat is enabled now. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today. We're going to go straight to the phones where we've got an on-screen caller.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, so I kind of heard the past argument there with the last caller. I just want to know...
I'm sorry for that.
I just want to know, like, what your vision of Free State, is. Like, I mean, would it be better if the libertarians took over your state, right? Or just everybody in general just decided, I just want to know what, if you guys feel like it would be better under your rule or whatever, is there going to be, like, clean air, clean water? Like, what's your vision, right? Like, I mean, do we all have to pay taxes if we move there, or is this going to be everything's privately owned? I can't walk down the sidewalk without paying a toll or drive down the street, or...
I'll take a shot at this one because I'm probably not as Pollyannish as a lot of libertarians. And I think there would be a lot of problems if you had a libertarian local New Hampshire government that was independent from the United States. Really, a lot of the only difference, I think, at first would be that you didn't have federal overreach going on, and then you'd encounter some problems along the way, and I think they'd get solved faster than the current system does. And I think there would be, less chance for fraud and abuse, and it would be an ongoing thing. And it's a tricky thing too, which the founders addressed, in that once you've set up a government that's going to leave people alone sufficiently enough, it requires vigilance from the people to keep it little like that. And
that's a quote from the founders as well,
right? So that's kind of been the game problem the whole time. And how do you enjoy the blessings of a small government and also stay vigilant?
That also, and like with all the intelligence agencies around, I would imagine even if the state did secede or whatever, it would be infiltrated just as soon as someone, just as soon as the people took over the government. What I mean? Like,
we go to libertarian meetups and there's a game called Spot the Fed. There's already infiltrators.
Hey, have a good one.
Yep. Thanks for the call. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
I mean, I used to have a shirt that said privatize everything, and it's kind of where I would like to get to. So if we can remove the yoke of the United States federal government, right, then once we're an independent state, like, I would want to remove the yoke of the state government. And then once we're independent counties, I would want to remove the yoke of the independent counties until we're down to, like, individual property owners actually owning their property, not collectively, not in collection with, a million other people in the state of New Hampshire. And I also think that markets work, right? So if, like, everybody owned their property, I really don't think you're going to have to pay a toll to walk down the sidewalk, because nobody wants to pay a toll to walk down the sidewalk, right?
Yeah,
and the minute someone popped up a toll booth on their part of the sidewalk, they would be shunned by everyone else, going like, come on, man, like, what the hell are you doing? Right? And then they would just, like, that dude would have to pay a toll for everywhere he goes for being the a-hole that put up a toll.
Right.
Right.
And this is, right, when you boil it down to that small, like we got down to individual ownership, 345 million sovereigns in this country, not sovereign citizens, but individual self-owners. If we got to that point, then it's a matter of how to coordinate larger projects again. And, the solution they came up with before was federal government. But we can see how intrusive that is. And
we already know how to do it, right? Like,
right.
So I'm from Hawaii. I mentioned that before. And at one point, this was on a different island. I think it was the island of Kauai. And there was a storm and a bridge collapsed. And the bridge connected the residents of that area with the businesses in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And the government was taking too long to repair the bridge.
Imagine that.
So the businesses got together, pooled their funds, and built a bridge.
Yeah, so they could get their customers back.
So when you say, like, how will they coordinate large projects? People with a profit motive and a profit incentive will figure out a way.
Right.
And if they have to cooperate, like, they compete with each other on the block, right? You got $100 to spend, you're going to go to business A or building B. But if there's no bridge, no one's going to either business. So they come together and they build the bridge, and then you get choice again.
Right. And I bet some of those businesses didn't pitch in on that and still reap the benefit, and nobody complained, and everything was okay. Like, there wasn't, they didn't go and demand that these smaller businesses that didn't pitch in pay their cut later or anything like that.
They might have been shunned, though. If you go, like, come on, man, you're going to reap the benefits of this. And the small business goes, well, I can't afford it. I'm not in business as long as you are. My revenue won't support it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can work something out. Or you just put up a sign that said, like, this guy didn't help build the bridge.
Right.
Right. And you ostracize them.
Yeah. I fully agree with that method.
So, and, there are ways.
Yeah, that's where I was going, is that, there's these types of so like even a sidewalk in a neighborhood where you don't have businesses that can pay for it, the cost obviously is not as much as a bridge and can still get paid for by the people that live on that street. And not everybody on the street's going to want to pitch in because somebody's not ever going to use that sidewalk.
Right.
And the rest of them will pay for it, and that'll be fine.
Yeah. Or again, you're responsible for your sidewalk outside of yours, and like whatever, like if you're like every place else you go, you go from like the public road to the business road, and a public road has potholes on it, and you deal with it, right? You walk by someone's house and like they've got cracks and grass coming out of the sidewalk. You just deal with it because it's not yours to control.
Right.
And you just deal with it. You go around, you go someplace else. Oh, they're not wheelchair friendly. Oh, well, figure it out.
Right. They probably would be if it were the responsibility of the individual, but we got this other organization that we can put all our problems on now and not worry about everything as we watch it all crumble.
And maybe you have tolls like every few miles, right? Like maybe those neighborhoods collectivize and say like, well, we'll put a toll booth here, and that will, anyone passing through will help maintain the roads for this area, right? And you form, I don't think corporations are going to go away because again, that's, government corporations with limited liability will go away, but I think people can still form organizations, I'll say organizations, that could be responsible and manage that. So you collectively hire, a road management organization. They put up some toll booths. They collect the money like property management companies do, and they disperse it equally amongst the residents of that section for maintenance of the roads or whatever.
Yep, I think the solutions to not having government fix all your problems are only as limited as your imagination.
But you got to trust the market, right? Like I don't think the market dictates people want toll booths at every stop.
Right. Well,
and so I don't think that's going to happen.
It's a thing that could be tried, and if the market says no, then it says no.
People will find another way around.
Something else.
Flying cars will be in existence, and you just go over it.
Yeah,
what is this stupid toll booth doing here? I'm not doing that. I'll just go over.
I'm convinced we would have had flying cars by now if we didn't have government holding us back.
And New Hampshire is uniquely suited where it's the only state that allows it currently.
Yeah.
Under the legal system.
If we did have flying cars, maybe Sarah in New Mexico wouldn't be so scared of them. Sarah,
but the parachuters.
What do you think about flying cars, Sarah?
I
That's close.
think they're okay. Are you with me?
Yes.
It sounds like.
Yep, you're on the air.
Unless they crash or something, that's always people are afraid of heights, But, anyways, I got the update on that little park with no name and no address next to our HAO.
Do you mean HOA? Homeowners Association.
Yeah, it's not the HOA property. It's actually a city property right next to it. So I think they were drag racers. So the people in the front, they asked to block the road. So the pedestrians they got both sidewalks and a bicycle through that you could go in with, but no cars. So, but this city property has been out of control. They have trees that are just overgrown, sticking out into the street, covering over the homeless people sleeping behind. So we cut down a lot of trees, and I dragged in some cinder blocks that I found. It was hard for me to lug all that, like 3 or 5 rocks, and somebody actually took a picture of it, how ugly it was, and sent it into the app to the city to come and pick them up. And what was funny, I was there when the truck showed up. I'm like, what is this city truck doing over here? It's like
taking away your cinder blocks.
Yeah, those are my cinder blocks that I dragged in, and somebody thought it was ugly. Well, I thought they were.
Isn't that beautiful with public property? You modify it the way you like it, and someone comes along and modifies it the way they like it, and forever you fight.
It's amazing. No, and I asked her, hey, what are you guys doing here? Nobody got shot. No, nobody got stabbed. Because usually you show up to pick up a dead body, right? Nobody wants that. And I said, are you going to lug all these rocks away? Are you going to bring in prettier rocks, boulders? Because one crazy guy picked it up and just busted it. And then I showed him the can lid and the little aluminum foil drug paraphernalia all crumpled up. And I said, look at they sleep here, they drink here, they shoot up needles here, smoke crack behind.
As well, they should be allowed to do on public property.
Yeah.
You only get like a 1/340 millionth vote. They've got like 3 of those. If there's 3 of them there,
you've
been outvoted.
Asking our previous caller exactly how I get my share of this collective ownership, and sounds like the people in this park in Albuquerque have it all figured out.
No, it's public. You just do what you want. Like, that's the problem.
Well, I don't know. I said, you guys never show up to pick up the dirty needles or poop or trash or drunk beer bottles or vodka bottles, but you'll show up to pick up these brooks to put it in your truck and haul it off. And I'm just like,
that's because your fellow citizens prefer beer bottles and needles in that section of the park. And they've decorated with such. You decorated it with rocks. They decorated it with empty beer bottles and needles. And both are equally valid under a public property paradigm.
Up aluminum paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what they do is that they fold up aluminum foil and they smoke the fentanyl.
Okay.
And that's their little dope paraphernalia. And after they're done, they crumple it up and they throw it in the park.
Mind your business. Leave them alone.
So that, you know what's funny? It's like, that's why I'm scratching my head. Are like ugly drunks more uglier than the ugly rocks? I mean, but that's the preference. They'll go to the trouble sending pictures about this. They never sent in pictures of needles and poop laying there, or beer bottles and vodka bottles. How come they don't get vigilant about that? Well, they got on their phone, took pictures, and sent it in.
So just leave them alone. Go to a private park where you get to at least like pay for the rules or view the rules in advance and see how they keep it clean and patronize them instead.
Well, we have an HAO park that's like maybe 30 feet next to it. So that we have to throw homeless people out of there all the time. That is our HAO park.
That's okay.
And you know what?
Yeah,
so there's no dog poop allowed, but we do find dog poop once in a while. And we're not vigilant where we could have a DNA because it's still outside.
You better run for HOA president, Sarah, so you can put an end to the dog poop crisis.
Yeah, I want DNA samples on all of the dog poop. But anyways,
that's one topic that gets me a little bit, Karen. Makes me want a little bit of a bureaucracy.
Really? Dog poop?
Yeah, can we just not have
just watch
dog
where you
poop
step.
everywhere? I know, and I usually do, but it's that one time that I'm not looking. There's going to be a dog poop right there.
Oh no! So you got to like spray your boots off before you go inside.
I know it's not the biggest annoyance in the world,
But
and I'm only kidding. There really ought to not be a law about it.
Well,
It's nature. They're animals. They poop wherever they want. It's bizarre that they have human beings following after them, scooping it up.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
It's weird.
Yeah,
Nobody thinks it's weird. It's weird.
I forgot who pointed it out, but yeah, it was like if you were an alien watching humans, you would think the dogs are in control.
Yes,
they're always like walking around in front. And
just let them poop.
Humans just picking up their poop.
Let them poop where dogs poop, and just be careful. If they poop on your property, though, your 340 millionth section of property, and you don't want it there, and you find out who did it, well, handle it separately.
Yeah.
Right, but as long as there's going to be like public sidewalks and public parks and public grass areas.
She's talking about the privately owned park, though. I think.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah. Like if it's part of the HOA deal,
right?
But I'm talking about like the general idea of like people following their dog around the neighborhood and picking up poop. That's weird.
Okay, but I want to get back to that little park. So one of our Patrick.
Most dogs would like to go in the grass anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, one of the HAO talked to me that you cannot plant cactuses. It's like that's city property. You have to get planting. And then he was like, "Well, I see kids walking over. They could trip and get pricked by."
What does HAO stand for, Sarah?
Homeowners Association.
Okay.
Oh, that's HOA.
I just wanted to make sure we're talking about the same thing because you corrected her and she continued to say HAO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Anyway, and then the thing is, and I look at him like he should be worried about kids tripping over and getting themselves pricked with a heroin needle. He was never around when we were cleaning up this park when we found 50 needles that she drug up.
And so if you're a parent and you know that there's this park there with heroin needles, like don't take your kids to that park.
Mm-hmm.
No, what they do is they walk through it. There's a elementary or there's a school that they go to the school and then they walk
go around. There's another path to the school that doesn't have heroin needles lining it.
This guy don't have kids, but he was worried about the cactus needles.
Okay.
And I was like, he never showed up to pick up one garbage bag or pick up one trash. It was never part of this project that we did that cleanup.
Well, he's part of your HOA, so you got to deal with him. Another reason to not have HOAs.
Yeah, but that's city property. He has no jurisdiction. All he could do is call the city and complain and have them come out and pull out all my cactuses.
City property means everyone's property, right? So, like, you prefer the cactuses there for decoration. He prefers that they not be there, and then he got help to have them removed.
I'll show you the cactus has been there so that the homeless people it'll poke their derriere. That's the purpose.
Okay. I don't care what the purpose is, but you have an equal say to that section of public property that he does. You prefer a cactus. He prefers not a cactus. And so you guys fight. And he got support from the state to have it removed. So you lose.
I didn't just talk about what I wanted in there. I actually planted cactuses.
Yes, and, you decorated the public land with cactuses, and then someone else who has an equal right to that land removed it.
No, he did not. Nobody pulled it out. Not yet.
Okay, well they're going to.
Yeah, and then send it to that city app and complain that it could hurt the children that are walking across.
Whatever his reason, whatever happens, like the problem, Sarah, is your communistic idea of property.
Yeah,
right. It's collective.
This is what we call the tragedy of the commons.
Well,
you both want access to that piece of property, and you want something different for it. And since neither of you owns it, or you both own it equally, you fight.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's probably. And the thing is, the cactus that we put, I got them for free.
Doesn't matter. I don't care if you paid $1,000 for it. Plant it on your own property and then tell him to, F off if he tries to have it removed from your personal property.
It's going to take 3 to 5 years before we get big enough to poke the derrieres of the drunks there, panhandling, sitting there.
Doesn't matter. This is not about cactuses. This is about the commonly owned, collectivized property.
And about human incentive. The only reason these people are there is because they don't have anywhere better to be. So make a better place for them to be, and they'll go there, and then you'll have your park back.
Well, but nobody messed with the cactuses, not yet. But you know what? Any drunk could come over there with a stick or a boot and just trample all over 1 o'clock in the morning, and I can't do nothing about it.
And I would support them doing so, because they have equal ownership to that section of land as you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I gave it a try.
There's no yeah buts.
No yeah buts.
That's
They
how
can
it
do
works.
whatever they want there because it's collectively owned.
I support littering on public property because I think that candy bar wrapper looks a lot better there than in the trash.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
That's your preference, and it might
It's my
not be
preference.
the same as mine, but...
And then you can come along and remove it.
Yeah, and I can pick it up, and you can throw
pick it up.
another one down, and I can pick that one up, too.
I
and-
love the ugly rocks. It's better than the ugly drunks. Kind of rhymes. The rock.
Again, this is your preference, and you have been outvoted by drunks with a stronger preference than you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
They like poop and needles
Write a
and
strongly
trash
worded letter to your representative. Post on your local social media park website.
Yeah, but by your own preferred system there, Sarah. These people have just as much of a right to run that park the way they want.
Stand out there in a mask at 1 o'clock in the morning and run them off, Sarah. Get out of here, you filthy animals.
Well, you know what? I cut down the tree. Now a speeder could run them over and get them out of the street that way. That's why we cut the trees down. So
Sarah finally finding speeders useful in New Mexico.
Sarah's serious about this. She's planting...
She cares more about killing drunks than she does about speeders.
Yeah.
Well,
Way
you
to
know
get your
what?
priorities in order, Sarah.
Well, they harass people. They panhandle, and they're blocking the right of way. That is not a
There's no
sidewalk.
right of way because it's publicly owned property.
Well, it was a right of way made for cars, not to have their legs and feet sticking out there 2 feet out into the road. If there's a speeder that missed the curb and they get hit, you know what? It's their fault.
Yes,
So that
it
curb
is.
was meant.
You're absolutely right. It is their fault, and you should not have to pay for their medical bills or funeral.
You know, I happen to have a preference for panhandlers in the park, so, you know, you say they're annoying or harassing, but they're quite pleasing to me.
Yeah.
Because they stay in the park, or you just...
I like to see people out there getting their hustle on.
Okay.
That's agorism right there.
Well, you know what? I want to name that park.
Panhandling.
It's
maybe,
not
maybe
agorism.
buskers.
Yeah.
I'll take buskers over
call it a
panhandlers. They're at least providing some entertainment.
Park. Nuisance Park. There's no name to that park.
Plant
I'm
a
gonna
sign,
call it
Sarah. You already
Nuisance
put
Park.
up rocks and a cactus. Just have a sign printed that says Nuisance Park. Beware of needles and drunks, and plant that instead of a cactus and see what happens.
I want a name to that park, and I'm gonna say a nuisance park.
Yeah, and make it official. Just print a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you. Bye bye.
All right. Thanks
Park
for the call,
hours
Sarah.
10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah, I'm sure she could probably make it happen. Just point out to her local bureaucracy that there's no signage in this park and it needs some, and she's got all the designs right here.
No, you don't
And
even need to do that.
She'll just drop them right off at the sign shop and have them printed up, and then she'll pick up the signs and install them herself.
She doesn't even need to go through the bureaucracy. She can just do it herself. She dragged rocks into the park. She planted cactuses in the park. Just put up a sign.
Yeah, but then she'd have to pay for them when she could get government to do it.
All right.
So, anyways, tragedy of the commons. That's how it goes when you have a commonly owned space, I guess. People can do what they want.
What is the right of way?
Yeah, let us know what you think about that topic. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
Eleutheromania, the insatiable desire for freedom. It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. It was a week of uncertainty, flip-flops, diplomatic discussions and moving deadlines, all surrounding US tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration implemented new 10% import duties on China and 25% on its 2 nearest neighbours, to only then reverse course and delay those Canada and Mexico tariffs for a month. All that uncertainty unsettled global markets amid fears of a painful and costly trade war. FSN's Tony Waterman reported on the retaliation moves.
Within minutes of the new U.S. tariffs taking effect, China and Canada retaliated, hitting the U.S. with fresh tariffs of their own on everything from cars to cotton to wine, beer, and Florida orange juice. Mexico, Canada, and China are the U.S.'s top 3 trade partners, and a trade war threatens to upend more than $2 trillion in trade, much of the cost passed along to consumers. Trump wants the countries to do more to stem the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. All 3 deny they are responsible for the U.S.'s drug problem.
Leaders of the European Union's member states ramped up support for Ukraine this week with an emergency summit in Brussels. It followed Washington's decision to freeze military aid to Kiev and cut off intelligence sharing. FSN's William Denslow was watching developments from the Belgium capital.
Senior EU officials say the changing policy from the US when it comes to Ukraine is the basis of this emergency summit. The focus is on how Ukraine's European allies can ramp up support in the short term, while also providing longer-term security guarantees, such as a possible peacekeeping force. Leaders will also discuss the European Commission's roughly $850 billion rearm plan to bolster the bloc's defence capabilities. European powers are scrambling to retain Washington's support for Ukraine, but this summit is an opportunity to prepare for a scenario where it's without its transatlantic partner. William Denslow, Brussels.
Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine are set to hold talks in Saudi Arabia next week aimed at creating a ceasefire agreement in the conflict with Russia. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Kiev.
After President Zelensky meets the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday, his team, but crucially not Mr. Zelensky himself, will stay on in the country for meetings with the US delegation. Washington has made no secret of its dissatisfaction with the Ukrainian leader, and the president's chief of staff is likely to head up the Ukrainian delegation. According to Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff, the idea for the talks in Saudi Arabia is to, quote, get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire. President Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine is not only ready to take the necessary steps for peace, but, quote, we are also proposing those steps.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN. The Gaza ceasefire agreement was in limbo this last week. Phase 1 expired last weekend with no clear path forward to move on to the second phase. US President Donald Trump threatened Hamas, telling the group it was their final chance to release the remaining hostages. US Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, plans to travel to the region next week. FSN's Giles Gibson has this update from Tel Aviv.
Speaking to reporters, Steve Witkoff did not reveal exact details about his trip to the Middle East next week, simply telling them that he'll visit 4 countries. The special envoy did confirm that the Trump administration recently held talks with Hamas, reversing a long-standing US policy of not negotiating directly with terror organizations, though he admitted the priority is Edan Alexander, who's believed to be the last living US citizen in captivity in Gaza. Witkoff insisted the aim is still to secure the release of all remaining hostages. No hostages have been released since the first phase of the ceasefire agreement expired last weekend. Giles Gibson, Tel Aviv.
And with that Gaza ceasefire agreement looking precarious, the United Nations this week urged Israel to restart aid deliveries to the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that aid would be blocked, accusing Hamas of stealing supplies. FSN's Jody Jacobs sent this report from the United Nations headquarters in New York.
The United Nations says the lives of thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip hang in the balance, warning that an already catastrophic situation on the ground risks deteriorating even further unless the flow of aid resumes without delay. Humanitarians say if the blockade continues, at least 80 community kitchens may soon run out of stock. Thousands of aid trucks moved into Gaza under the first phase of the ceasefire deal, which started on January the 19th.
And that was the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
All experts agreed this week that the dying U.S. economy is no reason at all to stop investing in print media, calling the newspaper and magazine industry a veritable cash cow with massive potential for growth. Top experts everywhere said that aggressive investment in print media will pay off in spades, and that newsprint is in no way threatened by internet news sites or online video content. Besides, everyone in the know agreed, loyal readers of newspapers would never, ever in a million years turn their back on the trusted print media industry that has always been there for them in good times and bad.
This is the Onion News Network.
It's the Onion Radio News. I'm Doyle Redland. Cardiologists announced today that test subjects who took a single aspirin tablet followed by a fifth of bonded Kentucky bourbon were 85% less likely to realize they were having a heart attack. Potential side effects for the new treatment include slurred speech, impaired vision, and vomiting. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about. The phone number to the studio is 603-283-6160. Are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
And Richie Rich.
Previously, we were talking to Sarah about drunks getting hit by speeding cars.
That's what's going in the show notes. Sarah endorses drunks getting hit by speeders.
Absolutely going in the show notes. I believe Richie Rich has another story he wants to share with us.
I've got a question for you, and I think I know the answer, but let's work through this a little bit. Anarchists, libertarians, not allowed to take other people's property, right? Like, we can agree that if it's not yours, you can't take it.
Right.
Generally. Okay. Is there any exception to that?
If it's nobody's, then you're allowed to homestead it. Yes.
Okay. But that's okay. But that's not someone else's property.
Right. Only unclaimed property. You can't take anybody's stuff, no.
So what if it was some livestock that you felt was going to be harmed? Would you be justified in taking someone else's livestock?
No.
No. Okay. Glad we're on the same page. Piglets left to starve as part of a controversial art exhibition in Denmark have been stolen.
Somebody was starving pigs for art?
Yes. Does that change your opinion?
No, I still would take the social ostracization approach and just tell everybody I knew how awful these people are for starving pigs for the sake of art.
I don't think you need to tell them. It was an art project, right?
Yeah,
like they were promoting this.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to let these 3 pigs starve. You should come watch.
Jeez.
Down at the art center. 3 piglets which were being allowed to starve as part of a controversial art exhibition in Denmark that had drawn international attention have been stolen, the artist said on Wednesday. Chilean-born Marco Ivariciti said he had been aiming to raise awareness of the suffering caused by mass meat production with his art installation that opened last week in Copenhagen. The piglets were being denied food and water and would have been allowed to starve to death. But in an unexpected twist, Evaristides has revealed that the piglets, dubbed Lucia, Simon, and Benjamin, were taken by animal rights activists who were assisted by his friend Kaspar Stefansson. I called the police on Saturday to report the piglets stolen, and I had to shut down the entire exhibition because of it. So I was very disappointed when Kaspar told me on Tuesday that he was involved in the theft, said Evariciti, who claimed that to have received hate mail. But then I thought about it for a few hours and realized that at least this way the piglets would have a happy life, he added. Copenhagen police confirmed Wednesday that it had received reports that the pigs had been stolen from the exhibition. Evaristides's And Now You Care, quote-unquote, exhibition involved a makeshift cage created with shopping carts containing the 3 piglets. He said the intention of the art installation was to raise awareness about the cruelties of modern pig production in Denmark. So, cruel himself to bring awareness to other people's cruelty.
Yeah, I don't know if I would take that same strategy, but...
Clearly not.
But it's a valid form of free speech, I guess. I mean, you are being unnecessarily cruel to some animals there, which is not... That's not...
Not cool, bro?
That's not cool, bro.
Yeah.
And
but if the big pig farms were doing the same thing, right? Then the response ought to be like what the activists did, and that's to rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And theft's but a rescue.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess...
but not your property.
It's hard to say which one is less cool, bro.
The Animal Protection Denmark Welfare Group says that sows are bred in the Danish pig industry to produce about 20 piglets at a time, but only have 14 teats, forcing the piglets to compete for breast milk, leading to starvation of many. I feel like that's a natural phenomenon.
That's
right. Like it doesn't only happen with pigs.
Well, no, because pigs don't actually meat pigs don't exist in nature. If you let them out, they turn back into something close to boars.
Well, I don't mean the pig production. I mean the weakest of the litter dying off in many other animal species.
Yeah, if a mammal mother has more children than she has teats, then yes, one of them is likely to become a runt and probably will fail to thrive and die.
Right. Or even birds as they're getting fed in the nest, right? The stronger birds take all the food and the runt just dies and mother doesn't kick out the other bigger, stronger birds and goes like, oh, you were weak, boy.
Yeah, just kicks out the dead body.
Just kicked out. Yeah. All right. So, it may this particular situation may not exist. Oh, I lost my spot. May not exist in nature, but the fact that the fact that animals in nature will let offspring die because they can't be fed for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's not one of the inhumane practices I would point to in large-scale animal farming.
It's not?
No, well, there are a lot more, I think, offensive practices that go on than that. Because that is sort of a natural thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, that kind of happens.
There's
nothing new about that.
But they could breed. I mean, does it even make economic sense to breed more than you can care for anyway? Like, if you know that they only have 14 teats, why are they breeding them to have 20 offspring?
Right. You wouldn't keep ramping that up past. Like, you would select for breeders that are going to produce litters of, like, say say most pigs have 12 teats, you'd look for litters of, around 12 to 14.
Yeah.
And then there's no point going up past 20.
Okay. Unless that's like really...
Plus, you're going to start to have pregnancy complications and stuff like that.
So it doesn't even... I mean, I believe that it's happening. Doesn't make a lot of economic sense unless you're using those dead piglets for something else. Right? Is it very tender bacon? Like baby pig fat?
Maybe they sell them for, like large snake feeders or...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, who knows? Yeah. However, several animal rights groups expressed concerns about Evrosity's exhibition, saying that while they welcomed initiatives to raise awareness, they did not condone the abuse of animals. Stephenson said he could not allow the 3 animals to face a painful death after his 10-year-old daughter had begged him to make sure the piggies won't die. So when I was approached by an activist to help free the animals, I let them into the gallery secretively on Saturday, Stephenson told the Associated Press. He said he wasn't initially planning to tell Evrosity about the removal of the pigs, but when the animal advocate group De Clemente Danske posted a statement online Tuesday saying it had rescued the piglets, the secret operation became public. They snitched. Evrosity said he is already developing ways to revive the exhibition. Kill them and then bring them back to life.
Yeah.
The resurrection of the pig. One idea is to steal dead piglets from meat processing plants and present them to the public. I mean, okay.
But you probably wouldn't have to steal them. Just go talk to the guy who makes that decision and probably give them to you.
It's also like packaged nicely at the butcher shop, too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He also wants to buy another 3 piglets, not to starve, but to auction to the highest bidder, promising them a happy life. I got a lot of hate message from around the world, and I think people don't get that my art is about animal rights, Evrosity said. So I wanted to do a similar thing several years ago, and I never got to do it because I don't want to spend the initial outlay. But I wanted to buy an American flag and then auction it off to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And if no one bid on it, it's going to burn it.
Yeah.
It'll be like a good old-fashioned flag burn, but you had the option to rescue the flag.
Huh.
Right?
Yeah.
And all these America, patriots, right? They'd spend $20-$50 to save an American flag, right?
Sure.
Maybe more.
I'm sure plenty of people would.
Right? Buy these, in bulk from China for 50 cents a piece or whatever, and just roll it in with people rescuing American flags.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Good business. That's my little side hustle.
That sounds like a great idea to me.
I had an American flag once from a job site the guy just gave to me because it was just going to be trashed.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's what sparked the idea. I'm like, I'm going to sell this.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to burn it. We're either going to have a good old-fashioned anarchist flag burn, or some patriot's going to spend some money to rescue it. And I made the move to the Free State Project in New Hampshire, and I left the flag behind, or I threw it out, or whatever. Never got around to it.
I've never burned a flag, just mostly because I don't care. Although I was part of a flag retiring ceremony as a Boy Scout one time, where they very respectfully laid the flag to rest in the fire.
I've never burned one.
Which was strange.
Yeah, it's weird. That's the official way to do it, but if you do it respectfully, good. If you set it on fire in a bucket, bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah. I've never done one either, but at the time, it felt like, as a good anarchist, I had to do it. It was just one of those anarchist things to do.
Yeah.
It's I'm just do a flag burn, but I'm like, I don't really want to burn my own flag, so I ain't got to spend money on it. So I got this free one. I'm like, oh, now I can do it. And I'm like, oh, but if I can make some money off it, because then the agri side comes out.
That's even better.
Then that's even better.
Yeah.
I could auction this off. How much would you spend?
Yeah.
How much would you pay to not have me burn this flag?
Yeah, that was one of the closest to religious feeling ceremonies that I ever experienced.
At the Boy Scouts?
At the Boy Scouts.
Okay.
Which was, Boy Scouts in Utah is probably a little different than it is elsewhere. It's very closely tied to LDS church functions. So it's already semi-religious anyways, but that was on another level, kind of like a courthouse being very much like a church or something.
Yeah.
Leaves this eerie feeling.
The closest I got to Boy Scouts was a subscription my dad got me for Boys Life magazine.
Mm.
And that was it.
Yeah.
I never joined the Scouts, never did any scouting activity. don't have any wilderness training?
Well, the wilderness training I got from the Boy Scouts was paltry and basically useless for the most part. They had a radio class that was semi-helpful, but I wasn't interested enough in it at the time to get all the information.
And now there's no Radio Shack nearby to get parts.
Yeah, if youth want survival skills, they shouldn't be looking to the Boy Scouts. They ought to be talking to somebody who actually does wilderness survival as a hobby or more. Somebody who actually does it, though.
That should be the Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts would take you on camps, but they bring pancake batter, eggs, and all that stuff. So, which you're not going to find out in the woods. But
is this a market opportunity for like youth wilderness training that doesn't exist because the scouts are insufficient?
I think there might be a market for it because these wilderness youth reform programs, like, you got a troublesome youth, send them here to our wilderness program. I went to one of those, and
as a troubled youth or just in general?
Yeah, as a troubled youth.
Okay.
I spent my 16th birthday in the Arizona desert with I had a sleeping bag, and they give you a food pack every week that's like stuff you can cook on a campfire.
All right.
Like ramen noodles like macaroni noodles, rice, lentils.
Survival food.
Survival food, yep.
Yeah.
And and they hike you every day until you finally, I don't know, calm down, I guess.
Would you say that impacted you positively in, like, I want to say, like, reforming your lifestyle choices, or?
Yeah, I would say it may have been more impactful than any other experience up to that point in my life, actually. Mostly because it gave me that, it stuck me into nature for 2.5 months, and I couldn't escape, and I was forced to I don't know, sort of reconnect to nature. Whereas modern society very much takes you out of that mindset. And so, yeah.
I've got my camping stove, my solar panel, and my iPad.
And aside from that, I can still make a fire by rubbing sticks together, which is, I don't know, if the listeners out there have never tried that, give it a try. It's actually pretty difficult. But it can be done. I think I heard an estimate one time that less than 500 people can do it at any given time.
Okay.
In America, meaning that they could just grab the sticks and whip out a coal and turn it into a fire.
I feel like in the zombie apocalypse, there's going to be enough big box stores where I could have a lifetime of lighters.
Yeah.
Fairly easily.
Yeah, I think there will be plenty of.
Like, that's where we're looting.
Survivalists like to refer to that one as the thumb drill because you've got hand drill, bow drill, fire plow.
I'm just saying,
methods.
there's like a lot of excess. There's a lot of excess survival gear floating out in the wilderness. Thank you, capitalism.
Yep, I don't think rubbing sticks together is going to be a necessary skill, but shelter building and water finding and purifying, those are, and especially wild edible hunting those are all very useful skills.
Yeah.
Let's see. Were you done with that story?
Yeah, that was it.
All right.
He's going to resurrect the art installation.
Well,
but no killing pigs, starving them to death.
Yeah.
Let them die a natural death at the hand of the butcher.
Yeah, I would come down on the side of not stealing those pigs.
Okay.
I think
it's a rescue.
That is a weird story, though. Get you thinking. No, it's not a rescue. That's a theft.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's fair that you have that position, but you can extend that to other property and or children, which people like to have, discussions about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If a homeschooling family is starving their kids to death in a closet, is there a legitimate right to rescue? Or is it theirs? It's not yours.
I think it depends. It depends on the.
My dad beats me. Please help me.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. Is it depends on the child's ability to desire emancipation.
Okay.
Because an infant has no concept of emancipation, and so I don't think you can rightfully take an infant.
Okay.
And so, at what point can you say that you can just rightly remove somebody's child?
But if you can't, and they're starving it, right? Do they have the right to starve it as their property?
I'm not going to say they have a right to, but are they allowed? But I don't think I have the right to go and remove that child either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that de facto, then they have the right, right? Because nobody else has a natural right to stop them. And so they're just allowed.
Oh.
Right?
They're allowed, but it's
not cool, bro.
Right, not cool, bro, which means to me not within your rights. The way I like to use the word rights is within the scope of right action. So,
all right.
Anything that isn't wrong. So, like, abusing your children is wrong. So you don't have that right because it's not a right thing to do.
Okay.
But
I mean, these activists think that factory farming is wrong, and so they don't have a right to do it.
I think there are definitely some practices within factory farming that would classify as wrong.
Okay.
And because animal abuse is not, I don't think that's within people's rights. But
yeah,
I'm not sure animal ownership is within people's rights.
Again, I hear you, but the next step in that is, but no one can stop you. No one has the right or authority to stop you. They can with force, but if they're in the wrong by stealing your property to prevent it from being damaged further, then they're exercising some level of ownership or on said property.
Yep, and that's what it really all comes down to is
I know better than
stuff
you.
Are you messing up by taking that action?
Yeah, I know better than you how this piglet should be treated, so I'm keeping it, and you can't have it, even though it was yours.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's theft. I had a thing that I called my property. It was it was proper to me, and I was making use of it.
You were starving it, so I took it.
But that's the way I was making use of it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Although detestable and against, most people's moral judgment, that's...
And you can't even ostracize this guy because he was promoting it.
That's a question of one thing being less right than another, if that makes sense.
Priorities.
Yeah. So, I've got an interesting story. It's almost a week old, but this one's, I don't know, let's just get into it, shall we?
Do it.
As part of sweeping cuts across the federal government as Trump's second term begins, a local organization has seen a major contract end. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, the Department of Government Efficiency said the Department of Health and Human Services has terminated a contract paying Family Endeavors $18 million a month to operate an empty facility in West Texas. The organization is known as Endeavors. This is a local story, so it talks about where it is. Doge focused on an overflow housing facility for migrant families that Endeavors operates in Pecos, Texas. Doge says the facility has been sitting empty while Endeavors has been receiving $18 million per month. Homeland Security reposted Doge's post on X, tagging U.S. Attorney Ed Martin with the words, "Please investigate," to which Martin responded, "Duly noted, we are on it."
So my big question with Doge, like I see all the waste and fraud that they're finding and they're, the attempt to put a stop to it. But unless they cut taxes or issue refunds to people, what difference does it make? Right? They're just shifting where it's spent on. So they close up this facility. The $18 million that they were spending on it goes back into the general fund, and the government spends it on something else of higher priority.
Okay, so I've gone to dogetracker.com. They've saved $105 billion, which is $652 per taxpayer.
Okay. So, but the taxpayers aren't getting that back.
No.
So it's just being diverted into other government programs.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, when they talked about having a Department of Government Efficiency, I didn't think that this meant that there would be, less spent overall. I just thought they were going to do the things they do more efficiently.
Okay.
So they were going to throw their...
So functionally useless to the American taxpayer.
Going to go gather up all the couch change and throw it at this...
Save it for a Christmas party for themselves as opposed to give it back.
Exactly.
All right.
Makes no sense to give it back. What do you think about Doge? And
it absolutely makes sense to give it back.
No, not
they
to them.
Stole it.
It might make sense to us. Give us a call. Let us know what you think. Phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
The number of users who actually enjoy Facebook is down to 4. And Apple announces a new iPhone with the N-word on the back, knowing customers will buy it anyway. And now for the delayed and utterly thoughtless romantic gesture that is the Onion Week in Review. Self-identified 9/11 truther Dennis Shaw told reporters Tuesday he's absolutely convinced the United States government has orchestrated an intricate plot to systematically destroy the last 11 years of his life. Shaw, who since 2001 has spent nearly every waking minute poring over footage of the World Trade Center attack and even handing out truther pamphlets every afternoon, says the government is behind the gradual collapse of his personal and professional life, adding that the conspiracy, quote, goes all the way to the top.
Before 2001, I'd see my friend Stephen Copley every couple of weeks, and now he won't even answer my calls. The government got to him too. Think about it. My coworkers, my wife, my friends, everyone calling me crazy after September 11th and wanting nothing to do with me. What are the chances of that?
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. It was a week of uncertainty, flip-flops, diplomatic discussions and moving deadlines, all surrounding US tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration implemented new 10% import duties on China and 25% on its two nearest neighbours, to only then reverse course and delay those Canada and Mexico tariffs for a month. All that uncertainty unsettled global markets amid fears of a painful and costly trade war. FSN's Tony Waterman reported on the retaliation moves.
Within minutes of the new U.S. tariffs taking effect, China and Canada retaliated, hitting the U.S. with fresh tariffs of their own on everything from cars to cotton to wine, beer, and Florida orange juice. Mexico, Canada, and China are the U.S.'s top 3 trade partners, and a trade war threatens to upend more than $2 trillion in trade, much of the cost passed along to consumers. Trump wants the countries to do more to stem the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. All 3 deny they are responsible for the U.S.'s drug problem.
Leaders of the European Union's member states ramped up support for Ukraine this week with an emergency summit in Brussels. It followed Washington's decision to freeze military aid to Kiev and cut off intelligence sharing. FSN's William Denslow was watching developments from the Belgium capital.
Senior EU officials say the changing policy from the US when it comes to Ukraine is the basis of this emergency summit. The focus is on how Ukraine's European allies can ramp up support in the short term, while also providing longer-term security guarantees, such as a possible peacekeeping force. Leaders will also discuss the European Commission's roughly $850 billion rearm plan to bolster the bloc's defence capabilities. European powers are scrambling to retain Washington's support for Ukraine, but this summit is an opportunity to prepare for a scenario where it's without its transatlantic partner. William Denslow, Brussels.
Meanwhile, the United States and Ukraine are set to hold talks in Saudi Arabia next week aimed at creating a ceasefire agreement in the conflict with Russia. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Kiev.
After President Zelensky meets the Saudi Crown Prince on Monday, his team, but crucially not Mr. Zelensky himself, will stay on in the country for meetings with the US delegation. Washington has made no secret of its dissatisfaction with the Ukrainian leader, and the president's chief of staff is likely to head up the Ukrainian delegation. According to Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff, the idea for the talks in Saudi Arabia is to, quote, get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire. President Zelensky said on Thursday that Ukraine is not only ready to take the necessary steps for peace, but, quote, we are also proposing those steps.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number to the studio is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Give us a call in this final segment and let us know what you're thinking about. Tonight you've got Stu.
And Richie Rich.
And recently we were talking about Doge shutting down an empty facility in West Texas.
Right, which is, I mean, it sounds good on its face, right? They found waste, they found fraud, they're putting an end to it, but where does that money go?
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been wondering too. And there was some rumors floating around of $5,000 checks for everybody.
Yep, they floated that.
But they've only saved enough to give everybody like $500. So
okay, I mean, I would take incremental checks, right?
Yeah.
If they're saving that, number one, if they're saving that much, return the money because they stole it, and if they stole it and it's going to like nefarious things, give it back, and then have I want to see like all taxes eliminated, but cut the taxes because you obviously didn't need that money in the budget the first go round. You took it unnecessarily.
Well, they're certainly not going to tax less. They've
Why not? If they're saving trillions or billions of dollars, they can collect billions less in taxes. They don't need it. It went to waste. Give it back.
Well, because the only reason they're trying to round this money up is so they can spend it the way they want to.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is.
And the way they want to spend it is not by giving it to us.
I understand, but this is what I voted for. Right,
Yeah.
one of those. They found all the ways. This is what I voted for.
Yeah,
I wanted to go to the new Trump Riviera in Gaza.
Heck yeah!
All of this money that they're saving is going to go to like Eric Trump's development corporation to rebuild Gaza.
I think this is a Kushner thing.
Okay.
Yeah, if I remember right, there's at least a couple years old where Kushner has been talking about developing Gaza already,
Okay,
so.
whatever. Son-in-law, not son. Then I don't. Whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. It's.
I don't care. I don't care who it did. But like, if that's all they're doing.
I mean, if I get a vote for what they're gonna do with this money,
you could vote for Trump or Biden last go around.
Then what they do with this money is they go to the International Bank of Settlements and the World Bank and ask them how much it costs to not get bombed back to the Stone Age after abolishing the Federal Reserve, and then you pay them their ransom and you get yourself off of that system because that's probably caused more destruction than even public school in this country.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve needs to absolutely be abolished, and auditing it is just.
I mean, individuals already have that option. You've always had that option, right? It's easier now with cryptocurrencies, but you can remove yourself from the Federal Reserve system just by entering into that.
You still need their notes to pay the ransoms levied by local governments.
Just stop paying
governments. That's true.
I'm a big fan of not paying. Like if they can take it out of your paycheck, fine. I mean, not fine, but fine. Right. But like, don't give them any more.
Right. You don't fight over that one. You don't fight over the sales tax at the register.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'd still like to fight. We don't have that here, but I'd still like to fight over it.
Yeah.
Right. But and again, I'm not okay with it. But if you can 1099 yourself and just not file,
yeah,
why wouldn't you? Just keep it.
Yeah.
They're doing bad stuff with it or wasting it. Just don't give it to them.
I agree. And I would like to see one person make the claim that they agree with all of the uses of their tax money. Or plunder, as I like to call it.
I want single issue tax protesters. Like whatever your problem with the government is, right? And everyone's got some problem with it. Just stop paying your taxes over that. Withhold your funding over that one issue until they eliminate that one issue.
Yeah.
And
if this was really about fairness for all and, justice and the American way and all that, they could do the taxation thing like a line item budget and you just, you're required to pay a certain amount, but you get to decide which budgets it goes into.
If you like the roads and the schools, by all means, continue to pay for those.
Yep. If you like the military,
continue to pay for that one.
Pitch in on bombs. We're going to go to the phones
but
right
a lot
now.
less people would be pitching in.
That's right.
When you can spend it on other stuff.
David in New Mexico, you're on the air. What's on your mind tonight?
Bunch of stuff. So you're talking about taxes. So why should we be paying income tax at all?
You shouldn't.
Shouldn't.
Okay. So have you heard of Ann Vandersteel is where I heard this stated, and I've heard other things as well. But what she's a media person on the right, alt, and what she said she did, and I'm not outing her because she did this herself over the airwaves. She said she filed what she called a IRS Form 56, and then followed up with, and I'd have to look at my notes, a letter of something. And she said she did this in 2020, might have been 2022.
Yeah. There's a handful of tax protesters who always have like the letter that you send or the form that you fill out or the procedure that you have to go through, to get them off your back.
Yeah, I know all that. Do it for years and years and years. It's over and over recurring theme on Free Talk Live. However, so this is and one of Ian's complaints is that he doesn't hear specifically the recipe. His other complaint is then he doesn't have video or evidence documentation of documenting the process and proving that it solved the problem.
We've promoted the Mark Stevens method on air periodically over the years, and I've bought the book, I listened to the lectures, I bought the packet of information to take into court, and I've done it in court, both successfully and unsuccessfully. And when it's successful, it's not because of the method, right? It's because they see that you're using the method and they find a technicality to let you off on, and therefore you can't say that it's the method when it's the method.
Right.
And so there's never any evidence because it's always something other than the method.
Right. So what I'm doing is I'm sticking to the code and I'm saying that here's my source, Ann Vandersteel, or that's one of them, and the evidence is that she filed a Form 56, which I'm introducing as evidence, and ask, so it's a specific concrete thing, and I'm asking you guys for what little or a lot if you've ever heard of a Form 56. I've yet to even Google Form 56. I'll do it right now while we're talking. And then the other piece that she did is, I'll have to look at my notes to see the title of the letter. She sent a letter to the IRS. This was in 2020 or 2022. And granted, even if you owed taxes and the IRS thought you owed taxes and you didn't file, they might not have gotten around to coming after you yet. But she says she's never heard anything from them, even though she didn't simply not file. She wrote him a letter and told him, I'm not paying you anymore. Here's my legal out.
Yep. Again, I hear you. I've never heard of the form. I don't know if Stu's researching it as we speak either.
The simple answer is Form 56 is used to notify the IRS of the creation or termination of a fiduciary relationship under Section 6903 and give notice of qualification under Section 6036.
Okay, so now you got to look at what those sections require or what they required of you. Right. How was that fiduciary responsibility created?
But actually, Richie, you can further research it to get the details, but the bottom line is right there in what he just read, and that is that she gave them notice that she no longer has a fiduciary duty to pay them, is what she told them.
Right.
And the reasoning.
And what is their definition of fiduciary duty?
Well, a fiduciary duty, in my lay understanding, is that she has an obligation to do the thing. And she sent them a letter saying that she no longer has the obligation to do the thing and is not going to do the thing.
Understood. And the likelihood is that fiduciary duty is defined further down in those subsections to mean something other than what the layman understands them to mean.
Okay. And So there's that, and then and I don't know if because once again I've not been able to afford the time to research it, and this is from memory.
Yeah.
But it's in my notes. I believe it is freedomlawschool.org or .com, and this guy has been on national radio programs, and he's been apparently arguing this and doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And has not been nailed by the IRS. Are you familiar with that one?
No. So the one I am most familiar with, and I'm not even recently familiar with it, is Larkin Rose's case, and the video that I think you can still find free on YouTube. I purchased the DVD called like Theft by Deception, and this is why I don't trust the layman's understanding of what you're saying. Is because if you watch the video, it's old now, but it's illustrated. He goes through the tax code, like for the requirement to file an income tax and what federal income means. And again, it's buried so deep that the vast majority of people don't fit the legal definition of earning federal income, and therefore the vast majority of people in the United States don't have an income tax burden to the federal government. But everyone above that, right, doesn't dig that deep, can't understand what it's trying to say, or just believes that that they owe it to begin with. Or if they do get audited, the government has the guns, and the entire argument is null and void, which is what happened to Larkin Rose at trial. He presented like the theft by deception. He didn't present the video, but the case he makes in the video is the defense he made in court for why he did not believe he needed to file a return or file an income tax or pay an income tax. And they just found him guilty anyway and put him in jail for a year. Right. Yeah. So like you can have all these legal documents, but if they want to come after you, they will. And we can, again, look toward the recent case with Roger Ver. They took 7 years to file anything against him. He left the country like 2017, and only last year they went, well, we can go get this guy now. So to say, like, I sent this letter to the government, and it's been 3 years and they haven't done anything, doesn't indicate to me with any conclusiveness that the reason they haven't come after you is because you sent them a strongly worded letter. It just may not be worth their time. Right.
I already conceded that.
Right. They go after bigger people, not necessarily tax protesters, but like people like Willie Nelson and Wesley Snipes and names, people that will recognize, and they go like, oh, we busted them for tax evasion. They're in jail for a year. Right. You should pay your taxes because you're going to be next. And the likelihood is you're not going to be next. You can get away with not filing for years. And again, we can look towards Ian Freeman's trial, where part of the conviction or whatever was like a tax evasion charge, and even after all the discovery and all the evidence, their expert witness said like there's nothing conclusive that he owed any income tax to begin with. Right? We've looked at the information, we were unable to make a determination, and they found him guilty anyway. Right, because he was a target that they wanted to go after.
Okay, so doubling down on a point of fact, so that it is indeed from my memory is correct, freedomlawschool.org, and I remember what the key, and there may be more. I've not got. This is the first time I even have looked at his website. I have not gone through it piece by piece, but I remember the key takeaway. His key allegation, prime allegation, is that the process of signing the forms, the tax forms that you fill out and sign under penalty of perjury or under oath, whatever, that prior to signing, you don't have an obligation. It's a voluntary thing. But once you've signed the contract of the form, admitting that you owe X according to their formula, then they have an admission that you owe it.
Okay. And I have signed all my government documents, either TDC or under duress or all rights reserved for like the past 15 years, right? And they've not come after me. And I could come to the conclusion that the reason they haven't come after me is because I've signed all their forms under duress, or TDC means threat, duress, coercion, or all rights reserved, meaning that I'm not relinquishing any rights by signing this document, right? And the fact is, the more likely thing is I just don't make enough money to be a target.
Right.
Yep. My opinion on this is that you won't get any fairness in the courts. It's hit and miss, and they make up the rules as they go along.
I've experienced that on lower court levels.
They'll mostly leave you alone if they think you're more work than it's worth.
Yep.
Which is, I think, the first thing that comes across our mind when they see, under duress or TDC or all rights reserved. They just think to themselves, this person's gonna, sure, I could railroad them if I want, but they're gonna be more work.
I've shared this before, but I'll share it again because it's moderately relevant. I don't even remember what the charge was for, but I was in court for something, and the prosecutor came up to me and he said, "Hey, Rich, we know you're an anarchist. We know you don't pay your fines, but I have to offer you this deal." I went, "Fantastic. What's the deal?" And he was like, $250, you plead guilty. I'm like, make it $200 payable to a charity, and you've got yourself a deal. And the charity thing is something that people brought up on Free Talk Live when I was a listener back in the day, right? And so I made the offer, and we went in front of the judge, and the judge said, "I've never heard of such a thing. Like, where did you come up with this?" And I said, "Ma'am," because I don't say Your Honor or Miss or whatever. I said, "There's precedence for this." And she said, "Cite your case." And I said, "You guys versed me last month." Because the month prior, I paid like $500 to the food bank for another infraction that they said I committed. But like, my goal is just not to give the state money, right? Not to fund their operation. And so she said, "Well, okay, but no." And the prosecutor looks over at me and he mouths the words, "I'm sorry. What do you want to do now?" And I said, "Take it to trial." And so they had to call the cop back because they dismissed him thinking that they were going to get a deal cut. They had to call the cop back. They went to trial. They found me guilty, and I walked out of court, and that was the end of it.
And so you didn't even have to, there was no sentence imposed at all, even though they found you guilty?
No, they sentenced a fine, and I never paid it.
Okay, and they never came after you for whatever?
I don't own assets, right? I've set my life up in a way that I don't own assets. There's nothing to come after me for.
Yeah, well, contempt. They can come after your habeas, your corpus.
They could, but they didn't. They just they just wasted time. They could have got $200 for a charity, but they got nothing instead.
Right. And if they had
taken my corpus, they'd have to pay to feed me and house me, right, for whatever duration they chose.
Unless you're in a state where they make the prisoner pay. I
would refuse to pay that. They would just hold me indefinitely. I'd have room and board for the rest of my life. I'm not going to pay to my kidnappers. They already know this. The prosecutor said, "We know you're an anarchist. We know you don't pay your fines, but I have to offer you this deal anyway." It's a no-win situation for them.
I think the maximum they can keep you in for contempt anyway is like 6 months.
Okay. So they would house me and feed me for 6 months, send me the bill after the fact. It wouldn't get paid, and they'd contempt me again and put me back in for another 6 months.
Right.
Whoopity-doo. My goal is to not fund their system. And if they're paying to keep me alive, it's a net loss for them.
And your judge, the argument you should have given her is because she was wrong that what's your precedent, whatever. Besides you last month, it's called, sentence me to community service and make my community service donating $500 to the food bank or $200 to the food bank, and then you'll have sentenced me, and I will have fulfilled the sentence and through community service.
I've also, the man, Richie Rich, have also done community service on behalf of my legal fiction.
Yeah. I didn't get that far. When I went into court here, they wanted some money out of me, and I was like, no.
Okay.
And so they were upset about it, but they gave me a court date, and when I went in there, it was very much a kangaroo setup where I could tell, everybody there was working together except for me. And when it came down to it, they didn't try to impose any kind of a fine on me so I wasn't able to tell them that I wouldn't pay it.
Yeah. Well, in my case with the legal fiction, they called my legal name 3 times, said that that entity was a no-show, and then they called the man Richie Rich up and said, like, do you represent the legal fiction? I said, sure. This was new to me. I was like, let's see how far we can take this.
Yeah.
And like, will you do the community service on his behalf? I'm like, sure. Let's see how far we can take this.
I did do a little of that at first when they called me by, the legal name. I just said, people call me Stu, and I think I'm who you're looking for.
Yeah.
And he accepted that. So.
Yeah, but did he bring you, Stu, the man, up to represent the legal fiction?
No, we didn't get into all that.
Oh yeah, and, I've done it,
and I never claimed.
Next time I'll say no, but it hasn't come up again. Yeah. Right? Like, do you, Richie Rich, the man, agree to do the community service on behalf of the legal fiction? No, absolutely not. You go after that thing.
I got the feeling this judge was kind of enjoying the change of pace.
Either way,
I'm sure he gets bored with people just coming in every day and being like, okay, same old story. It goes the same way every time until he gets some weirdo like us that's got ideas in his head about full names and social security numbers and what
but
what
it gives credence to the argument
are and who gets to tell me to do what.
It gives credence to the argument that the sovereign citizens or the people that fill out the forms and send the strongly worded letters, like, there's something behind it. I don't know what it is. I've done a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But when they want to convict you, they will. If they want to contempt you, they will.
They will. Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff that works, and I haven't seen anything that's 100% repeatable.
Yeah, because it's not. It's at the whim of the judge you're in front of that day.
Yep. That's why I came to the conclusion that it's a make it up as you go. That, and some courthouses say it right out front where they tell you, like, the first rule is that we make up the rules. And so that should be a big red flag for
I
everybody.
had one where the cop testified that he didn't fulfill the element of the crime as it was stated on the record, and they still found me guilty. Like, how does that happen? That's their rule. All the elements of the crime must be present for there to be a guilty. And he testified that one particular element didn't fit the way it was written, and they found me guilty anyway. So they make it up as they go. They do what they want. And if you can win some, good for you. And if it requires filling out Form 56 and sending a strongly worded letter and then waiting a few years to see, nothing happens, then by all means, go that route. But if they want something to happen, they'll make it happen.
I've heard stories of people writing letters to the IRS asking if the blood of Jesus doesn't forgive this, and getting a reply back that sure it does, and that they get out of paying their property taxes that way. That's not going to be repeatable, but it may have worked for one person. maybe the agent that happened to receive that letter was very
just
Christian,
didn't want to deal with it.
It was like, this, that might be. The St. Peter may not like that.
His wife was leaving him. He was drinking. He just didn't want to deal with it that day, and he authorized it.
Yeah. I don't know. Courtroom tactics are a lot of fun. Sometimes being in a courtroom is not so much fun.
Well, that's a choice, right? That's why I do this, because even police interactions on the side of the road, right? They're ruining my day. Yeah. This is going to be memorable, and I want it to be the worst day they've ever encountered.
Yeah.
And you can make that happen by choice every time.
That's a dangerous game to play sometimes, though. Thanks for the call, David. This has been Free Talk Live. We'll be back next weekend. And you can get your thoughts on the air. That's what the show is about.
Or the website in the meantime.
All about the callers. Yep. Go to the archives. Check out the shows. Thanks. Free Talk Live.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's